Chapter 1945. Jiang Hong Trading Company. Xiao Tong's face was pale and her body was trembling. She raised her head and looked at Zhuowen with a cold expression. She knew that her request was a little too much, but she really didn't know who else could help her. Although the Crepe Myrtle sect was a second-grade galaxy, and there were many true gods in the sect, they were at the border and were too far away from the Crepe Myrtle galaxy. If she relied on herself to fly, she wouldn't be able to return even after a few hundred years. She could only return through the teleportation array on the Brahma Terminus star. However, the teleportation array on the Brahma Terminus star was under the surveillance of the Jiang Hong Trading Company. Once she entered the teleportation array, she would be immediately discovered by the Jiang Hong Trading Company and captured. Moreover, the Crepe Myrtle sect disciples who came to the Brahma Terminus star to purchase the Ice Flame mysterious yellow Ganoderma were all captured by the Jiang Hong Trading Company. She was the only one who took the opportunity to slip away. However, she was forced into the turbulent space by Qi Cheng. Although she knew that her request was too much, she had no other choice. She could only beg the man in front of her. "Brother Zhua, I'm sorry. I went too far." Xiao Tong bit her lower lip and remained silent. She didn't dare to speak anymore. Seeing Xiao Tong like this, Zhuowen shook his head and used the shapeless all-life to completely change Xiao Tong's aura and appearance. "Miss Xiao, this is a powerful technique to change one's appearance. Ordinary true gods wouldn't be able to detect it, so take care of yourself." After Zhuowen finished speaking, he entered the Brahma Terminus star, leaving Xiao Tong standing there in a daze. The moment Zhuowen entered the Brahma Terminus star, he smelled a pungent smell of blood. Then, he looked up and saw that the entire sky of the Brahma Terminus star was filled with blood clouds. Most of the buildings on the planet were blood-red. Most of the forces on the Brahma Terminus star were gathered in the Brahma Terminus city. The Brahma Terminus city was the core city of the Brahma Terminus star. There were many shops selling all kinds of things, such as divine herbs, divine pills, divine weapons, and even divine beasts. Here, as long as you had divine stones, there was almost nothing you couldn't buy. This was also the reason why the Brahma Fiend star was so famous in the entire Great Brahma domain. After all, this was considered the most prosperous planet in the Great Brahma domain. However, it was also the most chaotic and evil planet. The law of the jungle was much more blatant here than in other regions. It was all too common to kill without a word. Zhuowen had seen many such cases along the way. "You just arrived?" The guards of Fan Fiend City looked at Zhuowen from head to toe as they mocked him. Zhuowen glanced at a late heavenly god cultivator beside him. After handing over 100 god stones, he took out 100 god stones from his spirit ring and handed them to the guard. Zhuowen was about to enter. "Hold on. Since this is your first time here, you'll have to charge a little more. Take out 1,000 divine stones," the guard said calmly. Zhuowen slowly turned his head, and a ray of terrifying divine light shot out from his eyes. Instantly, the guard's body trembled. He felt a terrifying pressure from Zhuowen's eyes that he had never felt before. This pressure was like a dark cloud that came crashing down mightily, occupying his entire heart. The guard took a few steps back, but Zhuowen didn't care at all. He slowly walked into Fan Fiend City. Another guard looked at the guard in surprise and said, "What's wrong with you? Why do you look like a fool all of a sudden? You don't even ask for divine stones." The guard shook his head and looked at Zhuowen's back with fear. He said fearfully, "This man is too scary. I don't dare to provoke him." After entering Fan Fiend City, Zhuowen casually strolled through the street. It was an eye-opener for him. In Fan Fiend City there were indeed all kinds of shops. Moreover, there was a dazzling array of things inside. There were all kinds of things, and there were all kinds of things. Suddenly, a skinny man stopped in front of Zhuowen. Zhuowen frowned slightly as he stared at the skinny man in front of him. This man's cultivation wasn't high. He was only a demigod. He didn't know why this man stopped him. Sir, is this your first time in Fanfine City? The skinny man immediately smiled obsequiously. Zhuowen nodded noncommittally. The obsequious smile on the skinny man's face deepened. He said, I am Ah Qian. I have been in Fanfine City for more than 70 years. I am very familiar with this place. If you want to quickly understand Fanfine City, I can help you. Also, if you need any information, I will try my best to get it for you. Although the scrawny man's strength wasn't strong, his ability to read people's expressions was top-notch. He could tell at a glance that Zhuowen was a newcomer and didn't know much about this place. He would definitely need a veteran like him, who had been through many hardships in Fanfine City, to lead the way. Zhuowen sized up the skinny man in front of him. It was his first time in Fanfine City. Indeed, he needed someone he knew to lead him. Moreover, he wanted to buy a star chart here. After walking around for a while, he realized that none of the shops sold star charts. Just as he was about to ask someone, the skinny man had already jumped out. Sure. How do you calculate the cost? Zhuowen knew that this skinny man, Ah Qian, should be a specialist in this kind of business in Fanfine City. Hence, he directly asked for the price. Ah Qian rubbed his hands and said, My lord, it is not expensive. 1 divine stone per day is enough. As long as my lord has any orders, Ah Qian will immediately do it for you. However, if there is any additional cost, my lord will have to pay for it. Zhuowen nodded and casually threw 10 divine stones to Ah Qian. He said, I will hire you for 10 days. First, help me find an inn. Ah Qian took the 10 divine stones and smiled. He quickly nodded and bowed. My lord, the inns here are very expensive. Ah Qian has a more affordable place. It is just that the location is a little remote, so, sure, as long as you can find a place to stay. Ah Qian quickly responded. He then led Zhuowen to the inn he was staying at. The inn that Ah Qian was staying at was indeed very remote. The price was also very cheap. Fortunately, Zhuowen wasn't picky about his accommodations. Hence, he didn't show any dissatisfaction. Ah Qian, I just walked around Fanfine City for a while. I didn't see any star charts being sold in the shops on both sides of the street. Are the star charts in Fanfine City so rare? Zhuowen sat in the room and asked Ah Qian. Ah Qian was startled. He then said strangely, My lord, in the Great Brahma region, star charts are relatively common. However, in Fanfine Star, they are extremely rare. This is because everything in Fanfine Star is controlled by the 3 major trading companies. Ordinary star charts can only be purchased from the 3 major trading companies. The 3 major trading companies? Which is the nearest trading company? Zhuowen asked. My lord, it's the Jianghong Trading Company. Are you going there now? Ah Qian asked respectfully. Zhuowen shook his head and said, No need. Help me find out if the Jianghong Trading Company has the star map of the locations of the waning moons. I will go to the Jianghong Trading Company tomorrow to purchase them. Ah Qian nodded and left the room. The next day, Ah Qian came to Zhuowen's room and said with some hesitation, My lord, I've asked around. The waning, waxing, waning, and waning star maps are extremely rare in the Jianghong Trading Company. Therefore, the Jianghong Trading Company's asking price is very high. How much? Zhuowen replied with a flick of his sleeve. 300,000 godstones. Ah Qian looked at Zhuowen, gritted his teeth, and announced the price. Zhuowen frowned. A mere star chart actually cost 300,000 divine stones. What was the difference between this and robbery? However, Zhuowen urgently needed this kind of star map. Although the price was expensive, Zhuowen still planned to buy it. My lord, do you really plan to buy it? Seeing Zhuowen step out of the room, Ah Qian was astonished. At the same time, his heart was filled with shock. He knew that the Zhuowen in front of him could very well have 300,000 divine stones, or even more. Thinking of this, Ah Qian became even more respectful of Zhuowen. He knew that a cultivator who could possess so many divine stones was definitely not simple. The Jianghong Trading Company was indeed not far. Qian and Zhuowen only walked for half an hour before they arrived at the Jianghong Trading Company. The Jianghong Trading Company was extremely large. Inside, there were layers upon layers of pavilions. It was extremely grand and majestic. There were people coming and going, and it was very lively. Under Qian's lead, Zhuowen came to a rather luxurious counter in the Jianghong Trading Company. A female cultivator with a professional smile stood in front of the counter. She looked at Zhuowen and said, "Customer, is there anything you need?" "I need the waning, waxing, waning, and waning star maps," Zhuowen said indifferently. Hearing this, the female cultivator's eyes lit up. The value of a waning, waxing, waning, and waning star map was not low. A cultivator who could afford such an item must have a great background. "Customer, please wait a moment. I will go in and retrieve the star map for you." After the female cultivator finished speaking, she walked into the inner room. After a while, she came out again and handed an emerald green jade slip to Zhuowen. After receiving the jade slip, Zhuowen looked through it. Then, he handed the storage bag with 300,000 divine stones to the female cultivator. "Dear customer, our company will be holding an auction 3 days from now. If you are interested, you can take this VIP card and participate in the auction 3 days from now." After receiving the divine stone, the female cultivator handed over a jade card and said with a smile. After buying the star map, Zhuowen was in a good mood. He took the jade card from the female cultivator. Zhuowen did not care much about this item. His main goal this time was the star map. Since he had bought the star map, he did not plan to stay here any longer. The Jianghong Trading Company is also holding an auction that is held once every 3 years? My lord, I am afraid that there will be some good items in this auction, Qian suddenly said excitedly. Zhuowen was a little surprised by Qian's expression. However, after Qian's explanation, he realized that the auction held by the Jianghong Trading Company this time was not ordinary. Generally speaking, trading companies would often hold auctions. However, they were relatively small and the items auctioned were not considered precious. However, this was an auction that was held once every 3 years. It was extremely grand. There would probably be many good items in this auction. Last year, the large-scale auction held by the Dazzling Light Trading Company had auctioned off a level 7 divine medicine, which caused countless experts to fight over it. Chapter 1946. Sequoia, esteemed guest, there are indeed some good things in this auction. According to my insider information, there will be a level 7 divine pill. If esteemed guest is really interested, you must attend in 3 days. The female cultivator winked at Zhuowen. Zhuowen showed a faint smile, although he knew that this female cultivator deliberately used this gimmick to attract him to the auction, but Zhuowen still intended to go to the auction to take a look. He was very clear on how precious a level 7 divine pill was. Even if he didn't have many divine stones on him, he still wanted to see what this legendary level 7 divine pill was. After leaving the Jianghong Trading Company, Zhuowen went straight back to the inn and immediately went into seclusion. He planned to use these 3 days to take a good look at the waning waxing waning star chart. 3 days later, Zhuowen walked out of his room, but his expression was somewhat gloomy. According to the star map, anyone who wanted to use the teleportation array in the core star field of the Great Brahma domain had to be a member of a star field or settle down in the core star field. Zhuowen hadn't achieved either of these, so once he reached the core star field, it would be wishful thinking to use the teleportation array there. Looks like we can only take one step at a time. After this auction, I will head to the core star field and see if there is a chance to use the teleportation array to go to the waning moon. Zhuowen rubbed his temples and muttered in a low voice. My lord. When Zhuowen opened the door, Qian was like a cat that smelled blood. He immediately appeared in front of Zhuowen's door with a fawning smile. When will the auction begin? Zhuowen asked. Ah Qian hurriedly said, "Today is noon, there are still 4 hours." Zhuowen nodded and said in a low voice, "Seems like there's still some time. Do you know where I can buy the mysterious yellow qi?" Ah Qian was startled and immediately said, "My lord, the black and yellow qi is rather common. Every shop in Fan Fiend City sells it." Zhuowen shook his head and said, "I know. It's just that the amount of profound yellow qi in those shops is too little. I need more. Do you know where the profound yellow qi in those shops comes from?" Ah Qian pondered for a moment before saying, "The mysterious yellow qi is mainly extracted from the mysterious yellow or vein. The mysterious yellow or vein in the Brahma Fiend star is not abundant. The only ore vein is in the hands of the Song clan in Songren City. The mysterious yellow qi in the shops in Brahma Fiend star is basically transported from the Song clan in Songren City." Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded his head. He was still wary of the Song family. He was very clear that his indestructible mysterious yellow required a large amount of mysterious yellow qi. He was afraid that ordinary mysterious yellow qi would not be enough to satisfy him. Since there were still 4 hours before the auction would begin, Zhuowen and Ah Qian began to stroll around Fan Fiend City. Soon enough, Zhuowen arrived at the Fan Fiend City's teleportation array. The teleportation array was extremely lively. There were crowds of people queuing up, forming a dark mass. It was obvious that there were many cultivators coming and going at the teleportation array. "Did you guys know? It is said that Qi Qing from the Jianghong Trading Company has been killed. It is said that the person who killed Qi Qing is Xiao Tong from the Crepe Myrtle sect, who was previously wanted by the Jianghong Trading Company." "It can't be. That Xiao Tong is only a late-stage heavenly god. How could she kill Qi Qing? Could it be that she used some despicable means? It should be. Yesterday, that Xiao Tong was caught by the people from the Jianghong Trading Company. That Xiao Tong admitted that she killed Qi Qing, so, suddenly, a conversation between a pair of cultivators came from the side. When Zhuowen heard it, his pupils could not help but shrink. He did not expect that Xiao Tong would be caught. Logically speaking, his shapeless all-life was extremely secretive. As long as that Xiao Tong did not court death and immediately teleported away, she should not have been caught. However, the problem now was that not only had Xiao Tong been caught, but the whole city knew about it. At the same time, Zhuowen had a good impression of Xiao Tong for not ratting him out. "Forget it. This matter is somewhat related to me. If there's a chance, I should rescue her." Zhuowen sighed in his heart. Of course, Zhuowen would not act rashly because of this. Although he did feel sympathy for that Xiao Tong, if the Jianghong Trading Company was really that powerful, he would not seek his own death. Thinking of this, Zhuowen looked at Ah Qian and asked, "Ah Qian, do you know how powerful the Jianghong Trading Company is? Are there any void sky experts among them?" Ah Qian was stunned. Soon after, he said hesitantly, "My lord, the founders of the 3 great trading companies are all void sky experts. However, there is only one of them. 3 void sky experts are the pinnacle experts in the Fan Fiend star. Although some void sky experts occasionally come to the Fan Fiend star, most of them come for the star's auction. Since the Jianghong Trading Company is auctioning a level 7 divine pill this time, I'm afraid some void sky experts will come to bid for it." Hearing this, Zhuowen frowned slightly. Although his current strength was not bad, it was still too difficult for him to fight against a void sky expert. Moreover, it was not that there were no experts among the true gods. For example, a true god who had survived more than a dozen calamities would be a true freak. Moreover, although Zhuowen's speed was rather fast, it was only comparable to an ordinary true god. Even if he had the support of the 5th level Dao intent, it was still impossible for him to be comparable to a void sky expert. However, Zhuowen quickly thought of the void sky divine ability, Torch Dragon 9-headed infant. Up until now, Zhuowen had never cultivated the Torch Dragon 9-headed infant. The reason was not that Zhuowen was unwilling, but that he was unable to cultivate it at the moment. The torch dragon nine-headed infant was a powerful movement technique that required dragon wings to be used. Moreover, the wings had to be at the divine dragon level or above. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to cultivate it. Of course, the introduction of the divine ability mentioned that the torch dragon wings were the best item to cultivate this divine ability. Unfortunately, the torch dragon was a powerful divine dragon in the legends. It was said that it had already surpassed the category of divine dragons. How could it have such a thing? The requirements for the divine dragon wings were much lower, but it was still very rare. Xiao Hei's original body was the great Nether Saint Dragon, but it had not reached the divine dragon level. This showed how rare divine dragons were. Moreover, he had also heard that the legendary divine dragons were one of the most powerful races in the universe. They were a race as powerful as Devour. Although there were more of them than Devour, it was not much more. Zhuowen sighed softly. At this moment, he was somewhat hesitant. He could not afford to provoke a Void Sky expert at the moment. He really did not want to provoke a Void Sky expert because of Xiao Tong. However, since Zhuowen knew that Xiao Tong had been captured, he could not bear to see her being captured. I can use the shapeless all-life to sneak into the prison to take a look. If it doesn't work, I can use the divine stones to redeem Xiao Tong. Zhuowen thought to himself. After all, the Jianghong Trading Company was a business. Compared to people, he knew that the Jianghong Trading Company valued the divine stones more. Although Zhuowen did not have many divine stones, he had a lot of fire spirit juice and many divine herbs. His foundation could even be compared to a galaxy. However, Zhuowen had planted all his divine herbs in the heavenly armor star in Devour's internal world. Moreover, Zhuowen had placed many divine stones in the heavenly armor star. Under the influence of the divine stones, the heavenly armor star had subtly transformed into a denser and more powerful planet. He believed that as he continued to transform the heavenly armor star, it would definitely become an extremely powerful planet in the future. By then, there would be more and more heavenly gods. What he needed to do was to continuously increase the number of planets in his body and use other planets to serve the heavenly armor star. After strolling around for a while, Zhuowen and Ah Qian entered the auction house that the Jianghong Trading Company had set up. It had to be said that the Jianghong Trading Company's current flow of people was really terrifying. Fortunately, Zhuowen had a VIP card. After handing it to the staff of the trading company, the staff respectfully led him to the VIP box around the auction house. As for Ah Qian, Zhuowen sent him away. There were many arrays in the VIP box. They were mainly used to shield one's divine sense. This was to prevent others from spying on the owner of the box. However, Zhuowen's divine sense was extremely powerful. Moreover, it had been tempered by the starry sky quenching stone. Not only was his divine sense powerful, but its penetrative power was also much stronger than that of ordinary cultivators. If he wanted to enter the shielding array outside the box, he could do it. However, if he did so, he would definitely be discovered by the cultivators in the box. At that time, it would cause unnecessary trouble. As soon as noon arrived, the auction house instantly became lively and clamorous. In the middle of the auction house, an enchanting woman walked over. This woman was dressed in revealing clothes, and her walking posture was even more provocative as she twisted her waist like a water snake. She looked extremely seductive, and many cultivators couldn't help but be attracted to her. Fellow Taoists, my name is Hong Shan, and I will be hosting this auction. If there is anything wrong with my hosting, please forgive me. Hong Shan's voice was sweet and greasy, causing people to feel numb all over. There were many cultivators below the stage who were not in the VIP seats, and they all stared at Hong Shan with blazing eyes, unable to take their eyes off her. Miss Hong Shan, are you the finale of this auction? Just name your price, and I'll only bid for your moment of spring. Suddenly, a cultivator jeered. Then, the other cultivators followed suit, and the surrounding atmosphere became extremely lively and playful. Hong Shan blinked her beautiful eyes, looked at the cultivator who jeered, and said in a tender voice, "Oh, young master, if you want Hong Shan's moment of spring, just come over and I'll give it to you." As soon as these words came out, the cultivator who jeered swallowed his saliva and involuntarily stepped onto the auction stage. He stared at Hong Shan with infatuation and said, "Miss Hong Shan, you said it, you." Unfortunately, before the cultivator could finish speaking, he took out a dagger and stabbed it at his glabella. Then, he screamed and fell off the stage. He quickly pulled out the dagger, and blood spurted out from his glabella. The cultivator clutched his glabella and rolled on the ground, screaming. Obviously, the dagger had injured his divine soul. Chapter 1947. Candle Dragon's Broken Wings. Is there anyone else who wants my daughter's night of passion? Hong Shan giggled, the charm in her beautiful eyes becoming even stronger. Unfortunately, in the eyes of many cultivators below the stage, this smile had turned into the smile of a demon, and no one dared to make a ruckus. "Since there's no one else, then my daughter will start the auction." Hong Shan smiled, and with a light clap of her jade-like hand, the first auction item was brought up from the back. It was a crystal the size of a longan. However, Zhuowen could feel a surge of divine aura coming from it. Zhuowen was very familiar with this aura. It was the aura of a divine stone, but the divine energy within this crystal was too vast, countless times greater than all the divine stone on him combined. "This is high-grade divine stone?" Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and immediately recognized the aura of this crystal. He had both low-grade divine stone and mid-grade divine stone on him, and this divine stone had an even denser aura than the two divine stone on him. It was either a high-grade divine stone or a top-grade divine stone. However, a top-grade divine stone was too rare. Zhuowen did not believe that a top-grade divine stone would be auctioned off in a mere auction, so he guessed that this was a high-grade divine stone. This is a high-grade divine stone. There are a total of 10 high-grade divine stone in this auction. The starting price is 100,000 low-grade divine stone, and each bid is at least 5,000 divine stone. Hong Shan laughed. The moment the high-grade divine stone was taken out, Zhuowen immediately decided to bid for this high-grade divine stone. The transformation of the heavenly armor star required divine stone, and the higher the quality of the divine stone, the greater the transformation of the heavenly armor star. However, the starting price of this high-grade divine stone was also out of Zhuowen's expectations. It actually required 100,000 low-grade divine sense S. This was a bit too much. 110,000. 120,000. Not long after, the price of this high-grade divine stone had already soared to 300,000. This soaring momentum was extremely fierce. Zhuowen frowned. He did not expect the price of the high-grade divine stone to soar so quickly. Although he had a lot of divine stone on him, he did not have many either. After spending 300,000 to buy the star map and taking out some divine stone to transform the heavenly armor star, he only had about 900,000 low-grade divine stone on him. When the price reached 700,000, the number of people bidding decreased significantly. When it reached 800,000, there were only a few people bidding. 900,000. Zhuowen immediately added 100,000 lower-grade divine stone, and when he finished speaking, the surrounding people immediately quieted down, obviously not planning to continue bidding. After all, spending 1,000,000 lower-grade divine stone to buy 10 upper-grade divine stone was actually a loss. When the maid handed over the 10 high-grade divine stones to Zhuowen, Zhuowen straightforwardly paid the 900,000 high-grade divine stones, and the divine stones on his body had already run out. "If I want to auction something now, will the Jianghong Trading Company do it?" Zhuowen suddenly asked the maid. The maid was startled, and she said respectfully, "Esteemed guest, this is possible, but the item you are auctioning must be precious enough. Otherwise, Lord Sequoia will not stop the auction and come over to help you auction something. Zhuowen nodded and immediately transmitted a message to the maidservant. Immediately, the maidservant's expression changed. She hurriedly said, "This item is indeed precious. I have to report it to Master Hongshan." With that, the maid hurriedly left the VIP seat. Zhuowen sat quietly. He planned to auction the fire spirit juice. This thing could not only increase the chances of a heavenly god advancing to a true god, but it also had another effect, which was to increase a cultivator's comprehension for a short period of time. Although it was only for a short period of time, to those cultivators who had encountered bottlenecks in their cultivation, this short period of increase in comprehension had unimaginable benefits. This was because they could rely on the increased comprehension to completely break through the bottleneck. It could be said that the preciousness of the fire spirit juice was innumerable. Zhuowen did not believe that Sequoia would not be moved. As expected, not long after the maid left, Sequoia stopped the auction, and then excitedly rushed to the box where Zhuowen was. Sequoia's behavior naturally attracted the attention of many cultivators to Zhuowen's box. They knew that usually, when the auctioneer temporarily stopped the auction, there must be an esteemed guest auctioning a precious item. Inside the box, Sequoia looked at Zhuowen with a smile and said coquettishly, "Esteemed guest, do you really have the fire spirit juice on you?" Zhuowen smiled slightly, and then took out half a barrel of fire spirit juice from his spirit ring and placed it in front of Sequoia. Sequoia looked at Sequoia Mountain, and her beautiful eyes were filled with shock. This was the first time she had seen so much fire spirit juice. She looked up and down at the young man in front of her. This person's aura was only at the late stage of the heavenly god realm, but he could possess so much fire spirit juice. He must have many secrets on him. However, these were the secrets of their guests, and their trading company would not ask too much about them. Sequoia's smile grew wider and wider, and her limpid eyes looked at Zhuowen with even more charm. She came to Zhuowen's side, almost sticking to Zhuowen's body, and said coquettishly, "Esteemed guest, can you sell this half-barrel of fire spirit juice to our Jianghong Trading Company? We will definitely give you a satisfactory price." Zhuowen looked indifferently at the seductive Hongshan in front of him and said, "What price can your company offer me?" Sequoia Mountain chuckled and said, 5,000,000 divine stones, are you satisfied with this price? Zhuowen sneered in his heart. Although he did not know the value of this half-barrel of fire spirit juice, he knew that it was definitely more than 5,000,000 divine stones. This Sequoia Mountain was trying to scam him. Hee, I still want to try putting it up for auction, Zhuowen said indifferently. Sequoia Mountain's brows furrowed, but they quickly smoothed out. She twisted her slender waist and climbed onto Zhuowen's chair. Her breath smelled like orchids, and her limpid eyes were watery. She said coquettishly, "Esteemed guest, are you still not satisfied with this price? Then what do you want me to do?" At this point, Sequoia Mountain's soft breasts almost touched Zhuowen's chest. Zhuowen was stunned. This Sequoia Mountain actually used a charm technique on him. She must be tired of living. Zhuowen snorted coldly, and he secretly activated all being formless, and an illusion technique was released from the depths of his eyes. Sequoia Mountain took a few steps back, and her beautiful eyes looked at the young man in front of her with shock. She had indeed used a charm technique on Zhuowen just now. Originally, she thought that it would be an easy task. After all, he was only a late-stage heavenly god cultivator. However, she soon realized that she was wrong. Not only did this young man break through her charm technique, he even backfired on her. "Miss Sequoia Mountain, what's wrong?" Zhuowen pretended to be shocked and asked. Sequoia Mountain smiled awkwardly and said, "I'm fine. Since you want to put it up for auction, I'll naturally do as you say. I'll take my leave now." After saying that, Sequoia Mountain put away the half-barrel of fire spirit juice and left the private room. After Sequoia Mountain left, Zhuowen's lips curled into a cold smile. It looked like the Jianghong Trading Company was not that fair. If he hadn't cultivated all being formless, he might not have been able to resist her charm technique. Sequoia Mountain went up on stage again, and the auction continued. Zhuowen did not bid on the following items as he was not interested in them. Moreover, he did not have many divine stones on him. The next item is a divine item that a previous guest wanted to put up for auction. Not only can this divine item increase the chances of a heavenly god advancing to a true god, but it can also increase a true god's comprehension for a short period of time, allowing them to break through bottleneck. Sequoia Mountain's words immediately attracted the attention of the bidding cultivators. Some of the cultivators had already guessed the next item, and all of them revealed fiery expressions. The instant the half-barrel of fire spirit juice was placed on the auction stage, the surroundings fell silent. Many cultivators even gulped. This is half a barrel of fire spirit juice. I believe everyone knows about this item, so I won't waste any more time. The starting bid for this item is 1 million divine stones, and each bid must not be lower than 100,000 divine stones. Sequoia Mountain smiled. Zhuowen, who was sitting in the private room, laughed coldly. The starting bid for this half-barrel of fire spirit juice was 1 million divine stones. If it was put up for auction, the price would definitely not be lower than 10 million. Sequoia Mountain actually wanted to buy this half-barrel of fire spirit juice from him for 5 million divine stones. She was really greedy. 1,100,000. 1,500,000. As soon as the fire spirit juice was placed on the stage, the price soared rapidly. In an instant, it soared to 5 million divine stones, and the momentum of the price did not decrease. Soon, the price broke through 10 million divine stones, and then it rose to 15 million divine stones. However, after 15 million divine stones, the bidding voices decreased significantly. It was obvious that the price was high enough. 20 million. A crisp voice rang out from one of the private rooms. Instantly, no one made a bid. 20 million divine stones was obviously not something an ordinary person could bid. Zhuowen was also slightly shocked. He did not expect that this half-barrel of fire spirit juice could be sold for so many divine stones. It was really unexpected. At the same time, he thought about the pool of fire spirit juice that Xiao He had used to bathe in. He knew that the value of that pool was immeasurable. Of course, if others found out that he had the pool of fire spirit juice, he would definitely be hunted down by countless true gods. Even Void Sky Almighty experts might not care about their reputation and come to snatch it. After the half-barrel of fire spirit juice was auctioned, a servant girl brought 19 million divine stones and handed it to Zhuowen. Zhuowen knew that the remaining 1 million divine stones should have been taken by the trading firm. After all, there was a handling fee for auctioning things. There was no other way. Not long after the fire spirit juice's popularity died down, another divine object appeared in the auction house, causing a complete uproar. Ladies and gentlemen, this object is a remnant wing of the Torch Dragon. The great master of the Jianghong trading firm, Lord Wu Han, accidentally obtained it in the dangerous Sunset Valley. There is no need for Sequoia Mountain to explain the Torch Dragon's reputation. Everyone should know about it. In the private room, Zhuowen stood up abruptly with an excited expression. He did not expect to encounter the Torch Dragon wing in this auction. Although it was only a remnant wing, it was enough to help him cultivate the Torch Dragon 9-headed infants. This object must be auctioned at all costs. Zhuowen clenched his fists, and his eyes were filled with coldness. The reserve price of the remnant wing of the Torch Dragon is 2 million divine stones, and each bid must not be lower than 100,000, Sequoia Mountain said with a smile. Chapter 1948. Qiyun Celestial Soil, 5 million divine stones, I want this Torch Dragon remnant wing. As soon as Hong Shan started bidding, a powerful voice immediately increased the price by 4 million, raising the price to 5 million. 6 million. However, this domineering voice did not scare anyone. Another voice drowned out this domineering voice. It was neither salty nor light. 6,500,000. 7 million. The bidding became more and more heated, but Zhuowen did not bid. Instead, he waited silently. He knew very well that it was useless to join the bidding now. It was better to wait until later. When the price broke through 10 million, the bidding voice obviously decreased a lot. 15 million. Zhuowen instantly increased the price by 5 million, which immediately shocked many cultivators in the auction house. However, it only lasted for a while. The domineering voice from before spoke again. I've said it before. I, Hao Tianyuan, want this torch dragon remnant wing. I'm offering 16 million. Is there anyone else who wants to bid? As soon as Hao Tianyuan said this, many cultivators in the surroundings gasped. Obviously, Hao Tianyuan's reputation was not small. Otherwise, it would be impossible for so many cultivators to show such a surprised expression. 20 million. Suddenly, a cold voice instantly increased the price by 4 million, completely ignoring Hao Tianyuan's name. Hao Tianyuan's face froze and his eyes turned gloomy. He did not expect that there would still be people bidding after he announced his name. This was really arrogant and conceited. Zhuowen frowned slightly. He did not expect the price of this torch dragon remnant wing to rise so quickly. 20 million had already exceeded the sum of all the divine stones he had. However, Zhuowen did not want to give up this torch dragon remnant wing, because this item was specially prepared for him to cultivate the torch dragon 9-een. Once he could cultivate the torch dragon 9-een with this torch dragon remnant wing, his speed would probably be unparalleled below the void sky realm. Even a void sky almighty expert might not necessarily be faster than him. Thinking of this, Zhuowen shook the bell in the box. This bell was used temporarily for emergencies. It was mainly used to raise money for the auction. Not long after, a beautiful woman entered Zhuowen's box. I need a large amount of divine stones. How many divine stones do you plan to pay for this barrel of fire spirit juice? Zhuowen took out an entire barrel of fire spirit juice without hesitation. The beautiful woman was dumbfounded. She never thought that Zhuowen would have so much fire spirit juice on him. She knew that the VIP in this room had already auctioned off half a barrel of fire spirit juice. Please wait a moment, I need to ask my superior. The beautiful woman immediately took out a jade talisman and inquired inside. She then said to Zhuowen, esteemed guest, our company is willing to pay 30 million god stones for your fire spirit juice. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. Just now, half a barrel of fire spirit juice was auctioned off for 20 million. Now that he had taken out a barrel of fire spirit juice, the Jianghong Trading Company was auctioning it off for 30 million. This was too much. However, Zhuowen also knew that this was not an auction, so he nodded and agreed to the price. After the transaction was completed, the price of the torch dragon wings had already broken the 30 million mark. The only bidders left were Hao Tianyuan and the cold voice. 31 million. Hao Tianyuan gritted his teeth. This was already close to the limit of the divine stones he had. He did not believe that the cold voice would continue to bid. Sure enough, after Hao Tianyuan called out this price, the cold voice no longer spoke. Hao Tianyuan also let out a light breath, and the corner of his mouth revealed a trace of a smile. 1 million is too stingy. I'll pay 35 million. Hao Tianyuan originally thought that no one would bid, but suddenly, the cultivator in the box who had been silent suddenly increased the price. This caused Hao Tianyuan's face to freeze. Hao Tianyuan was furious. His divine sense violently swept towards Zhuowen's box, but unfortunately, it was blocked outside. What about me? If you have divine stones, go ahead and add. Zhuowen said sarcastically. Hao Tianyuan suppressed his anger and said in a low muffled voice, 35 million, 40 million. However, Zhuowen sneered and immediately increased the bid to 40 million. Hao Tianyuan was so angry that his entire body was trembling. He only had a total of 40 million divine level stones on him, and he could not take out any more to compete with Zhuo. "Don't let me know who you are," Hao Tianyuan said coldly as he looked at Zhuowen's box. "Idiot! You don't have the money, yet you're still pretending in front of me." Zhuowen was not afraid of Hao Tianyuan's threat. He planned to leave this place after obtaining the Torch Dragon Remnant Wing. Then, he would use the All-Life Formless to hide temporarily and prepare to cultivate the Torch Dragon 9 Infants technique. As for the final level 7 Divine Pill, Zhuowen did not plan to bid for it. Not to mention whether he had enough Divine Stones, the level 7 Divine Pill alone would probably cause a Void Sky Almighty to bid for it. He did not want to be involved in such a dispute. Although the Torch Dragon Remnant Wing was precious, it was not enough to attract the attention of a Void Sky Almighty. However, the level 7 Divine Pill was different. Hao Tianyuan's aura was quite strong, but it was only at the level of a 2 Calamities True God. Therefore, he did not take Hao Tianyuan's threat seriously. In a private room not far away, Hao Tianyuan suddenly slammed his fist on the table. His gaze was cold as he stared at Zhuo Wen's private room. However, he did not continue to ridicule Zhuo Wen. Instead, killing intent rose in his heart. He decided that no matter what, he would kill this reckless cultivator. The next item is called the Scarlet Cloud Immortal Soil. This is not ordinary soil. It is said that this soil once cultivated a level 7 divine medicine. It contains the aura of a level 7 divine medicine. I don't think I need to explain how precious this item is. Hong Shan chuckled and continued, "The starting price of this item is 1 million divine stones. The increment must not be less than 10,000 divine stones." Zhuowen looked at the palm-sized soil and was even more surprised. He did not expect this soil to have cultivated a level 7 divine medicine. Coincidentally, he also remembered the withered level 7 divine medicine he obtained from the Fiery Cloud domain. If he obtained the Qiyun Celestial Land and used the Celestial Land to cultivate the withered level 7 divine medicine, would it be possible for it to be reborn? Zhuowen's eyes blazed with desire. However, the following bidding made Zhuowen flinch. The price of the Scarlet Cloud Immortal Soil quickly broke through the 10 million mark. 20 million divine stones. Hao Tianyun suddenly increased the price by 10 million. Instantly there was complete silence. Although the Scarlet Cloud Immortal Soil was rare, it was only the size of a palm. 20 million divine stones was actually a little expensive. Therefore, many cultivators gave up bidding. In the end, the Scarlet Cloud Immortal Soil was obtained by Hao Tianyun. Zhuowen silently glanced at Hao Tianyun, who had won the bid for the Scarlet Cloud Immortal Soil. His eyes flickered, but he got up and left the box. Since he couldn't obtain the Scarlet Cloud Immortal Soil, he could only give it up. In the future, he could look for soil similar to the Scarlet Cloud Immortal Soil and use it to cultivate level 6 and level 7 divine medicine. As soon as Zhuowen left the box, the maid in Hao Tianyun's box came in and said to Hao Tianyun, "Lord Hao, that person has left the box." Hao Tianyun's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He said coldly, "My Hao Tianyun's things aren't that easy to take." With that, Hao Tianyun left the box. The moment Hao Tianyun left the box, the auctioneer, Hong Shan, laughed and retreated behind the scenes. Another woman took over as the auctioneer. To be able to take out a barrel and a half of spirit juice, that esteemed guest is really rich. Our Jianghong Trading Company must treat him well. In the darkness, Hong Shan twisted her slender waist as she left the trading company. Behind her, a figure with a terrifying aura followed closely. In another box not far from Hao Tianyun, a black-clothed man with a cold expression gently stroked the hilt of the sword at his waist. Then, he got up and left the box. The moment Zhuowen left the trading company, 3 powerful divine consciousnesses locked onto him. Zhuowen's gaze froze and he sneered in his heart. He immediately took out the Thunder Fire Sword and flew out of Fan Sha City with a swoosh. He, Zhuowen, wasn't someone who could be bullied easily. Since they had their eyes on him, Zhuowen, they had to be prepared to be killed. Zhuowen's speed wasn't slow, but it wasn't fast either. Very soon, he was out of Fansha City. When he reached a place where there was no one, an air-piercing sound came and pierced toward his back. Zhuowen twisted his waist and the thunder fire sword moved to the side. He dodged the air-piercing weapon behind him. Your reaction isn't bad. Originally, I thought it was some powerful real god who was bidding against me. I didn't expect it to be an ant in the late heavenly god realm. A cold voice could be heard. Zhuowen turned around and looked at the middle-aged man in blue. He knew that this man should be Hao Tianyuan. Hao Tianyuan's aura was extremely strong. His body had a dense aura of thunder and fire. This was a sign that he had passed through a thunder disaster and fire disaster. He knew that this person was a two calamities real god. However, the aura of Hao Tianyuan's thunder disaster and fire disaster wasn't strong. He probably hadn't passed through these two disasters many times. He could be considered a normal two calamities real god. Why? As a real god, you want to snatch the descendant of a mere heavenly god like me? Zhuowen said coldly. Hao Tianyuan laughed and said, Are you afraid? It's a pity that even if you kneel down and beg for mercy now, you still have to die. Because you have offended me, Hao Tianyuan. From the moment you insulted me, you were a dead man. Idiot, Zhuowen said indifferently. Hao Tianyuan's face froze. He looked at Zhuowen with a gloomy gaze and said, What did you say? You actually insulted me again. Do you not want to live anymore? Idiot, didn't you say that I would definitely die? Since I'm going to die anyway, I might as well call you an idiot. Moreover, I feel that this term suits you very well, Zhuowen said sarcastically. Die. Hao Tianyuan was completely enraged. He took out an axe and plunged it toward Zhuowen. At the same time, the aura of thunder disaster and fire disaster on Hao Tianyuan's body instantly became violent, causing Hao Tianyuan to be wrapped in a shadow of thunder and fire. Zhuowen glanced around casually. With his powerful senses of the soul, he immediately discovered that there were three other presences hidden in the surroundings. However, the three presences were hidden in the void, silently observing everything. Bang! Zhuowen held the thunder fire sword and blocked slightly. Then, he spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backward. His face was extremely pale. An ant will always be an ant. It's really not worth mentioning. Hao Tianyuan's gaze was filled with disdain. He carried the axe and continued to chase after Zhuowen. He wanted to kill this cultivator completely and take his spiritual ring. Chapter 1949. Snatch, however, just as Hao Tianyuan's axe was about to hit Zhuowen's body, a black blade and a red satin suddenly appeared from the clouds and knocked the axe away. Bang! Zhuowen fell to the ground. His face was pale and blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth. The aura on his body was faint, as though he would die at any time. Hao Tianyuan looked at Zhuowen, who was lying on the ground. He knew that Zhuowen would not live for long. The fact that Zhuowen did not die under his axe meant that Zhuowen was quite powerful. After all, Hao Tianyuan was a true god of two disasters while Zhuowen's aura was only at the later stage of the heavenly god realm. The difference between the two of them was too big. To Hao Tianyuan, such an ant could be killed with one finger. However, Hao Tianyuan's attention was no longer on Zhuowen but on the void in front of him. He said coldly, Are the three of you done hiding? Why don't you come out? Just as Hao Tianyuan finished his sentence, the void in front of him split open and a cold man in black walked out. The man in black clenched his right hand and the black blade that was originally used to attack the axe was held in his hand. It's really you. You lost to me in the bidding and now you want to snatch it? Hao Tianyuan said sarcastically. This man has many secrets, but I only want the wings of the serpent dragon. Give it to me and everything on him will belong to you. Moreover, I will help you chase away the other two people, the man in black said calmly. In the hole, Zhuowen lifted his head and looked at the man in black silently. From the moment the man spoke, he knew that he was the owner of the cold voice who had bid for the wings of the serpent dragon at the auction. As for the other two people, they were Hong Shan from the Jianghong Trading Company and an elder that Zhuowen did not know. Hao Tianyun furrowed his brows. Just as he was hesitating, Hong Shan's coquettish voice rang out, "The two of you, aren't you treating me like an outsider? I'm just a weak girl. What right do I have to fight with you?" Two figures slowly walked out of the void above the clouds. One of them was a woman with a graceful figure. She was none other than Hong Shan, who had previously hosted the auction in the Jianghong Trading Company. Following behind her was an expressionless gray-robed elder. Hong Shan's aura was not strong. She was probably a true god of one disasters. However, the elder in a gray, true god of two disasters like Hao Tianyun. Moreover, the aura of the elder in a gray, the aura of the lightning and fire was of lightning and fire. The elder in a gray's lightning and fire. The elder in gray's two. Fire and fire to fire two's two disasters. Hao Tianyun's. Was his god in a gray, he Tianyun's eyes as his to god to studio two's to studio to his studio and en studio ndra. To his studio to studio to yang. To the side Hong. To of Hong to the ground to. Hong Yen. Was gray was. She smiled and said, "The two of you, can you give me some face? This person is very important to me. If the two of you give him to me, I will be very grateful." As she said that, Hong Shan's eyes were filled with charm. Her eyes were misty and she gave off an extremely enchanting aura. The black-robed man and Hao Tianyun were stunned. However, they quickly came back to their senses. The two of them were cursing Hong Shan in their hearts. She had actually used her charm on the two of them. However, even though Sequoia's seduction techniques were very powerful, and she appeared to be very open, she was actually a pure and honest person. Up until now, no one had taken advantage of her in any way. Moreover, Hong Shan's background in the Jianghong Trading Company was not low. Although there were many experts in Fansha City who coveted Hong Shan's beauty, it was a pity that no one succeeded. Most of the men were fooled by her. "Miss Hong Shan, your words are a little too much. This kid doesn't know what's good for him. He snatched what we needed. He has some grudges with us. However, you have no grudges with this kid. Why do you want us to give him to you instead of you giving him to us?" Hao Tianyun said with a fake smile. Hong Shan chuckled. Her laughter was as clear as silver bells. She did not mind Hao Tianyun's sarcastic remarks. "Ah, then there's no other way. Uncle Zhang, I'll leave these two to you. I'll take this kid with me." Hong Shan chuckled and landed lightly beside Zhuowen. Hao Tianyun and the black-robed man's faces changed slightly. Just as they moved towards Hong Shan, they were stopped in midair by the gray-robed elder. "Get lost!" Hao Tianyun shouted coldly. The divine axe in his right hand blasted out. Terrifying murderous runes intertwined and spread out in all directions. It was as if the surroundings were about to collapse. The gray-robed elder was silent. However, his hands did not slow down in the slightest. He pulled out the gray trident and threw it out. Instantly, gray gas spread out and formed a gray sea that stretched as far as the eye could see. A monstrous gray tsunami surged from the surface of this gray sea. It came crashing down and actually forced the divine axe to retreat continuously. Even Hao Tianyun let out a muffled groan and was forced to retreat continuously. "Why aren't you helping me?" Hao Tianyun shouted at the black-robed man not far away. The black-robed man understood and immediately took out a black sharp blade. The black sharp blade was like a crescent moon in the night sky. In an instant it shuttled through the void. Its speed was frightening. Bang! With the black-robed man's help, the gray-robed elder was instantly stabilized. However, it was a pity that the gray-robed elder was too strong. Although Hao Tianyun and the black-robed man had teamed up, they were still suppressed by the gray-robed elder. The battle between the three real gods was extremely intense. The battle of the real god weapons and the collision of strong divine powers created a dazzling radiance in the void. Hong Shan came before Zhuowen and squatted down gently. Her beautiful eyes sized up Zhuowen, who was in a severely injured state. She smiled and said, "Esteemed guest, to be able to take out a bucket and a half of fire spirit juice in one go, you are not an ordinary rich person." As she spoke, Hong Shan extended her slender hands and played with Zhuowen's chest gently. It was as if she was teasing Zhuowen. The teasing look in Hong Shan's eyes became more intense. "You look very young. You are the first Empyrean god I have ever seen who is so rich." As she spoke, Hong Shan's hand suddenly landed on Zhuowen's face. Her beautiful face slowly moved closer to Zhuowen's face. The seductive look on her face became even more intense. It was like autumn water that made people want to pinch her face in their hands and rub it fiercely. "I am very unhappy. When we were in the private room, you actually broke my seduction technique. It seems like you are quite capable. However, I don't believe that you can still resist my seduction technique when you are already in such a state." Hong Shan giggled and exhaled. The hot air that she breathed on Zhuowen's face was soft and moist. It was filled with unimaginable temptation. Hong Shan could clearly feel Zhuowen's fiery aura in front of her. A trace of pride rose in her heart. The unhappiness that she felt when she was ignored by Zhuowen in the private room suddenly disappeared. "It's time to take this kid's spiritual ring. I wonder how much fire spirit juice is left in his spiritual ring," Hong Shan thought to herself. Her hand reached towards the spiritual ring on Zhuowen's right hand. She wanted to take the spiritual ring on Zhuowen's right hand. She knew very well that Zhuowen was only a god. He had a great need for fire spirit juice. However, this kid could take out a bucket and a half of fire spirit juice to auction. This meant that he still had a lot of fire spirit juice on him. However, the moment her hand reached for Zhuowen's right hand, she found that Zhuowen's right hand suddenly grabbed her hand. Then, Zhuowen's left hand wrapped around Hong Shan's slender waist with lightning speed. Hong Shan let out a soft cry. Just as she was about to break free, she discovered that the hand was like an iron hoop, firmly holding onto her. Then, with a sudden force, Hong Shan was brought over to Zhuowen, face to face. You are courting death." Hong Shan's face reddened. It was the first time she had been taken advantage of by a man. She was enraged. The god power in her body surged as she tried to break free from Zhuowen. However, Hong Shan soon realized that something was wrong. Even though the god power in her body was surging, she still couldn't break free from Zhuowen's embrace. "Miss Hong Shan, it's you who is taking advantage of me, okay?" Zhuowen looked at Hong Shan mockingly. He quietly released Devour's innate ability, Purgatory. Countless refined souls flew out, absorbing the god power in Hong Shan's body. Soon, Hong Shan felt powerless. At the same time, Zhuowen used his powerful god power to create a terrifying confining force, locking Hong Shan in this confining force. Then, he put Hong Shan into the spiritual ring and jumped up, leaving this place quickly. "Miss!" The moment Zhuowen put Hong Shan away, the gray-robed old man, who was fighting with Hao Tianyun and the black-clothed man, was enraged. He stomped his right foot and shot out like an arrow, chasing after Zhuowen. Bang! Hao Tianyun and the black-clothed man couldn't help but take a few steps back. Looking at the gray-robed old man, their eyes twinkled as they followed him. At the same time, Hao Tianyun was secretly surprised. He didn't expect that Zhuowen could run away so fast, even though he had severely injured him. As for Hong Shan, although he didn't pay much attention to her, he knew that she had gone too far, which gave Zhuowen a chance to capture her. He didn't think that Zhuowen was strong enough to take Hong Shan away. The powerful soul consciousness fell on Zhuowen like a tide, locking him down. Zhuowen furrowed his brows. He didn't expect the gray-robed old man to be so fast. Apparently, this old man wasn't an ordinary two-disaster true god. Hand over, miss, and I'll leave your corpse intact. The gray-robed old man's eyes were cold as he shouted at Zhuowen. Zhuowen sneered. Looking at the gray-robed old man, he wasn't afraid. Die! When the gray-robed elder was within reach of Zhuowen, the gray-robed elder slammed his palm towards Zhuowen's back. Zhuowen's right foot was instantly suffused with a purple aura as he used 4 layers of purple aura. His speed instantly changed, and he flew in the opposite direction. The gray-robed elder's attack naturally missed. You're coming towards us. You're courting death. Hao Tianyun saw Zhuowen plunging towards them, and he sneered. He immediately took out his axe and swung it at Zhuowen. As for the black-clothed man, he stopped not far away and didn't take any action. In his opinion, there was no need for him and Hao Tianyun to team up against a mere late heaven god. However, at the moment when the axe was about to hit Zhuowen, the thunder-fire sword in Zhuowen's body plunged out and clashed with the axe. Zhuowen's momentum didn't decrease, and he instantly plunged in front of Hao Tianyun. Dark Moon Time. Chapter 1950. Glorious Purple Galaxy Divine. Sand. Hao Tianyun's eyes bulged as he looked at the lower half of his body in disbelief. He had been too careless. He had always thought that Zhuowen was just an ordinary early heavenly god. He had never thought that Zhuowen would suddenly explode with such power and cut him in half. Explode. Hao Tianyun's reaction was extremely fast. The moment he was cut in half, he came back to his senses and immediately detonated the axe. Hao Tianyun's divine axe was a low-grade true god weapon. When it exploded, the power it produced was not small. It was enough to kill a heavenly god and severely injure an ordinary one-disaster true god. Unfortunately, Zhuowen was not afraid at all. He immediately used Heaven and Earth Everlasting. Waves of golden gas surrounded his body and formed a strong defense. When the energy of the divine axe's explosion completely engulfed Zhuowen, the soul-absorbing god needle between Zhuowen's eyebrows shot out at an extremely fast speed. The moment the soul-absorbing god needle shot out, Zhuowen was also enveloped by the energy of the explosion. Hao Tianyun had never thought that Zhuowen could still attack at this moment, so he did not guard against the soul-absorbing god needle. Poochie! Blood splattered as a bloody hole appeared between Hao Tianyun's eyebrows. The soul-absorbing god needle was messing around in his divine soul, completely destroying it. Rumble! Hao Tianyun was dead, and Zhuowen's fist landed on the explosion, creating a human-sized hole in the explosion. Zhuowen then crawled out and immediately put away Hao Tianyun's spirit ring. He then released his 5th-level Dao intent and instantly disappeared from where he stood. The moment Zhuowen left, the black-robed man also came back to his senses. His body trembled as he stared at Zhuowen, who had disappeared in fear. Hao Tianyun's strength was not much different from his, but he was killed in a few moves. It was unbelievable. Although Hao Tianyun was careless, it was still terrifying because Zhuowen's aura was only at the late heavenly god realm. To a two-calamities true god, a late-stage heavenly god was just an ant that could be killed with a wave of his hand. But today the roles were reversed. Hao Tianyun was killed by a late-stage heavenly god ant. It was because of this hesitation that the black-robed man's spiritual sense completely lost track of Zhuowen's figure. You didn't stop that person? At this moment, the gray-robed elder had also rushed to the black-robed man's side. His gaze was extremely cold. That Zhuowen was too cunning. He had actually held back on his movement technique. At the beginning, Zhuowen didn't use his full strength to flee. At the instant the gray-robed old man was about to catch up to him and attack him, Zhuowen suddenly utilized the energy of Dao Insight to raise his speed to the limit and flashed in the opposite direction. Furthermore, the time that Zhuowen and Hao Tianyun exchanged blows was extremely short. It could be said that Zhuowen had taken advantage of Hao Tianyun's carelessness to kill Hao Tianyun in an instant. Even though the gray-robed elder rushed over with all his might, he still lost track of Zhuowen. However, if the black-robed man had locked onto Zhuowen with his spiritual sense from the beginning, the gray-robed elder might not have lost track of him. The black-robed man took a few steps back. Black sharp blades revolved around his body as he looked at the gray-robed elder cautiously. Thinking about how Zhuowen had robbed Sequoia, the gray-robed elder's gaze became extremely gloomy. He stared eerily at the black-robed man and said, "You, die." The gray-robed elder roared furiously and threw the trident at the black-robed man. At this moment, the gray-robed elder attacked with all his might. In an instant, a monstrous gray tsunami surged in the surroundings and came crashing down. The black-robed man's face turned ugly. The power that the gray-robed elder had unleashed at this moment was even stronger than before. The black sharp blades instantly transformed into countless blade shadows. Then, they merged and condensed into a monstrous giant sword shadow that slashed towards the gray tsunami. Unfortunately, the gray tsunami was too powerful. The huge sword image was directly shattered, and the black blade was also shattered. The black-clothed man was sent flying, and he coughed up blood. His eyes were filled with fear. He knew that the gray-robed elder was not a simple two-disaster true god, but he did not expect him to be so strong. How long had this person been in the two-disaster true god realm for him to have such terrifying power? I'll let you die with a clear understanding. I've cultivated for 3,000 years as a two-disaster true god and survived 6 great fires. You're just a one-fire true god. You're just an ant in front of me. The gray-robed elder had appeared above the black-robed man. His right hand formed a claw and pressed in between the black-robed man's eyebrows. With a bang, the black-robed man's eyebrows ruptured. Blood spurted out and his god's soul was completely destroyed. However, his face still maintained that terrified expression. After killing the black-robed man, the gray-robed elder's murderous intent did not disappear. Instead, it grew stronger. At the same time, he was worried. Although Hong Shan looked like an auctioneer of the Jiang Hong trading firm, he knew that Hong Shan had a high position in the Jiang Hong trading firm. She was the granddaughter of the owner of the Jiang Hong trading firm, Wu Han. Moreover, Wu Han doted on Hong Shan. As long as it was a request from Hong Shan, Wu Han would try his best to fulfill it. Now that Hong Shan had been kidnapped by a young man in the late divine realm, if Wu Han knew about it, the gray-robed elder would be in a miserable state. Fortunately, Lord Wu Han is not in the Fan Sha star. However, Lord Wu Han should be back soon. I have to find that bastard before Lord Wu Han returns. The gray-robed elder's eyes were cold. Then, he left the place. He decided to return to the Jiang Hong trading firm and use the power of the Jiang Hong trading firm to arrest Zhuowen in the entire Fan Sha star. He also locked down the Fan Sha city. Because the teleportation array that connected the Fan Sha star to the outside world only existed in the Fan Sha city, if the cultivator wanted to leave the Fan Sha star, he had to return to the Fan Sha city. Therefore, the gray-robed elder's first task was to lock down the Fan Sha city. Back in Fan Fiend City, Zhuowen's aura and appearance instantly changed into that of a young man with a cold and gloomy expression. Even his aura became gloomy. Even if the gray-robed old man was standing in front of him, he wouldn't be able to recognize the current Zhuowen. After changing his appearance, Zhuowen found a random inn and stayed there temporarily. As for Qian and the inn on the other side, Zhuowen did not plan to return. He knew very well that once the gray-robed elder returned, he would definitely investigate the inn on Qian's side. Therefore, if he returned, he would be walking into a trap. In the room of the inn, Zhuowen waved his sleeve. A black whirlpool appeared and his original body, dressed in white, slowly walked out. His original body's cultivation had increased very quickly. During the time he was cultivating on the illusory sky bridge, his original body's cultivation had constantly improved and had already reached the level of a demigod. It would not be long before he would be able to become a true god. Although Zhuowen's mind power clone had not been preserved after his rebirth, his original body still had the memories of the devouring curse forbidden seal. Moreover, when his original body was cultivating on the illusory heavenly bridge, he had been using the fire spirit juice all the time, so his comprehension was always at an unimaginable level. Therefore, when his original body began to cultivate the devouring curse forbidden art again, he immediately cultivated it to perfection. At the same time, his original body had also become a heaven saint master and was not far from becoming a celestial saint master. Although it was difficult to start from the beginning, Zhuowen had the foundation and experience of a profound saint master. Although his mind power clone had been destroyed before his rebirth, causing Zhuowen's mind power cultivation to fall short of success, he still had his foundation. In addition to the effects of the illusory sky bridge and the fire spirit juice, Zhuowen's cultivation of the devouring curse forbidden seal was naturally not slow. His mind power also increased very quickly. Zhuowen's gaze was calm. He landed in the room and began to set up a powerful formation in the room with the devouring curse forbidden seal. The devouring curse forbidden seal's characteristics were to devour and absorb. If someone broke in, Zhuowen would immediately know. After setting up the formation, Zhuowen returned to devour space. Zhuowen first took out Hao Tianyun's spirit ring. There were only about 20 million divine stones left in Hao Tianyun's spirit ring. Zhuowen was most concerned about the scarlet cloud celestial soil that Hao Tianyun had won. Apart from that, there were some miscellaneous items in Hao Tianyun's spirit ring. Although there were some divine herbs, they were much worse than the ones Zhuowen had obtained in the fiery cloud territory. However, Zhuowen still put them away. This is. When Zhuowen moved all the items in Hao Tianyun's spirit ring into his own spirit ring, he suddenly noticed a bright spot. Zhuowen took the bright spot and found that it was a thumb-sized stone. This stone exuded a metallic texture and felt heavy in his hand. Zhuowen immediately knew that this stone was not simple. When he used his soul consciousness to investigate this stone, he found that his soul consciousness had been devoured by this stone. Devouring soul consciousness? Zhuowen's eyes widened in surprise as he muttered in disbelief. Oh? Isn't this the glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand? The thunder fire sword instantly flew out. Xiao He sat on the sword's hilt, looking at the small stone in Zhuowen's hand in surprise. Xiao He, do you know this thing? Zhuowen asked with a frown. Xiao He chuckled and said, In the inheritance of the thunder fire sword, I know many refining materials like the back of my hand. I only learned about this glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand after I inherited the memories of the thunder fire sword. This thing is not simple. Boy, the glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand is extremely rare and is an extremely powerful refining material. If you refine this glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand into a divine sword, the divine sword will have the terrifying effect of severing soul consciousness. Unfortunately, the amount of glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand you have now is too little. It's only the size of a thumb. Speaking of this, Xiao He shook his head and felt that it was a pity. Then can I use this glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand into my soul-absorbing god needle? After learning about the miraculous effects of the glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand, Zhuowen's eyes shone brightly. It could be said that this glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand was prepared for his soul-absorbing god needle. Once the glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand was integrated into the soul-absorbing god needle, the soul-absorbing god needle would not need to directly enter the soul space of a cultivator. As long as it touched the cultivator's soul consciousness, it would most likely be able to injure the cultivator's soul that was connected to the soul consciousness. Yes, you can give me the soul-absorbing god needle. The inheritance of the thunder fire sword is not only the cultivation method, but also the powerful refining method. Xiao He patted his chest and said, Chapter 1951. Sealed City. The scarlet cloud celestial soil was as red as fire. It felt warm and soft in his hand. In particular, Zhuowen was moved by the surging divine power contained in the scarlet cloud celestial soil. He had never seen such divine power before. I wonder if the scarlet cloud celestial soil can really revive a withered level 7 divine herb? Zhuowen's eyes flickered as he took out a withered, black divine herb from his spiritual ring. It was called the Dragon King Grass. He carefully removed the scarlet cloud celestial soil and then planted the roots of the Dragon King Grass into the soil. Zhuowen did not know if it was an illusion, but he found that the withered Dragon King Grass gave off a trace of vitality the moment it was planted in the scarlet cloud celestial soil. It seems to be effective. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He observed for a while and found that the vitality of the Dragon King Grass was gradually reviving. However, the speed of revival was extremely slow, like a snail moving forward. Zhuowen looked for a while and then put away the Dragon King Grass. He knew that the Dragon King Grass was completely withered and it would take a long time to revive it. After putting away the Dragon King Grass, Zhuowen took out the torch dragon wings and stared at them with a burning gaze. He knew very well that with the torch dragon wings, he could practice the torch dragon 9-headed infant technique. Zhuowen opened his mouth and spat out the divine fire in his dantian. The divine fire completely enveloped the torch dragon wings and completely refined them. The first step of the torch dragon 9 infants required the cultivator to refine the dragon wings. Then, through the secret technique of the Torch Dragon 9 infants, they would use their own star god power to nurture 9 Torch Dragon larvae. Jiuing meant 9 Torch Dragon larvae. As for the 9 Torch Dragon larvae, they would attach themselves to the dragon wings. With Torch Dragon strength, they would soar into the 9 heavens and shake the firmament. As the cultivator continued to practice, the 9 infant torch dragons attached to the dragon wings would gradually grow and the speed of the cultivator would increase exponentially with the growth of the dragon wings. Zhuowen spent half a month to barely refine the remnant wings of the torch dragon. The divine fire carried the torch dragon's wings and slowly approached Zhuowen. Then, it landed behind Zhuowen. The bones of the torch dragon's wings had completely fused with Zhuowen's spine. Zhuowen even had a feeling that the dragon wings were innate. Zhuowen even had a heroic feeling. As long as he gently flapped the wings on his back, he would be able to soar through the 9 heavens and roam freely. The only flaw was that the torch dragon remnant wings were incomplete and could not fully unleash the speed of torch dragon 9-headed infants. However, it was still much faster than Zhuowen's current speed. On the torch dragon wings, 9 dragon whelps were constantly circling around, looking very cheerful. Zhuowen knew very well that these 9 dragon whelps were the energy source that powered the torch dragon wings. With a thought, the torch dragon wings slowly shrank and finally merged into Zhuowen's back. Speaking of which, the torch dragon wings were similar to the tempest wings derived from the tempest sacred talisman. However, the torch dragon wings were illusory wings derived from a void heaven mystique and contained extremely powerful starry sky laws. The tempest wings, on the other hand, were far inferior to the torch dragon wings. Naturally, its speed could not be compared to the torch dragon wings. After refining the torch dragon wings, Zhuowen was in a good mood and immediately summoned Sequoia, who had been imprisoned, from his spirit ring. At this moment, Hongshan was glaring at Zhuowen with her beautiful eyes. If not for the fact that she was imprisoned and unable to move, she would have pounced on Zhuowen and bitten him. Miss Hongshan, a straightforward person, does not resort to insinuations. I have something to ask you. You'd better cooperate, Zhuowen said indifferently. Immediately, he released the gag on Hongshan's mouth and let her speak. You've got guts. Do you know who I am? If you let me go now, you'll have a chance to live. Otherwise, you'll definitely die, Hongshan said through gritted teeth. Zhuowen sized up Hongshan in astonishment. In fact, when Hongshan brought a 2 calamities true god, He already knew that this woman's position in the Jianghong trading firm wasn't low. So what? Aren't you still in my hands now? Zhuowen said nonchalantly. Hongshan sneered and said, The ignorant are truly fearless. Do you know the owner of the Jianghong trading firm? His name is Wu Han. Although I usually address him as Lord Wu Han, he's actually my grandfather. Zhuowen was stunned. He didn't expect Hongshan to be the granddaughter of the Jianghong trading firm's owner. He had heard from Qian that Wu Han was extremely powerful. He was a void sky realm existence. In addition, he was the founder of the Jianghong trading firm. He was extremely famous on the Brahma star. Hongshan also saw the astonishment on Zhuowen's face. The coldness at the corner of her mouth became even more intense. She said complacently, Since you know my background, you still dare to be so impudent with me? Although you're strong, you're only a heavenly god. How can you be a match for a void sky realm expert? Zhuowen looked at Hongshan calmly and said indifferently, Are you done? Hongshan was stunned and subconsciously nodded. However, she quickly said angrily, Didn't you hear what I said? I have a void sky expert behind me. How dare you treat me like this? And I know. So what? Zhuowen said coldly. Hongshan was stunned. She stared at Zhuowen and found that he really didn't put her background in his eyes. She felt dejected. I have something to ask you. If you answer me honestly, I won't continue to touch you. However, if you don't cooperate, I don't think I won't act recklessly. After saying that, Zhuowen's gaze impudently sized up Hongshan's body. Hongshan's face was filled with shame and anger. Although she was extremely charming in the eyes of outsiders and appeared to be passionate and open, in reality, no man had ever touched her body in all these years, and no one had been as impudent as Zhuowen. After all, her identity caused many cultivators who had designs on her to shrink back at the sight of her. After this period of contact, Hongshan knew Zhuowen's character. He was definitely someone who would do what he said. She was very confident in her charm. If Zhuowen really did something to her, she wouldn't be able to do anything. After all, she was now a fish on the chopping block while Zhuowen was a knife. Ask away. After this period of contact, Hongshan more or less understood the character of the young man in front of her. She knew that it was impossible to scare him and could only do as he said. I remember that your Jianghong trading company caught a girl named Xiao Tong. Where are you keeping her? Zhuowen asked indifferently. Who is she to you? Hongshan asked subconsciously. However, she quickly found that her question was a little inappropriate. Her cheeks turned red and she quickly changed her question. Why are you asking about her? Zhuowen didn't care about Hongshan's strange behavior and said indifferently, She is a friend I met on the road. Just answer me honestly. Hongshan frowned. Under Zhuowen's sharp gaze, she sighed and said, She and the people from the crepe myrtle sect were not imprisoned in the Jianghong Trading Company. They were taken away by Song Ling of the Song family of Song Rinqing. And this time, it was the Song family who asked our Jianghong Trading Company to deal with the crepe myrtle sect. Hearing this, Zhuowen frowned and said, So Xiao Tong has been sent to Song Rinqing? Yes. Hongshan nodded. With that, Zhuowen directly put Hongshan into the spirit ring and walked out of the inn. Walking on the street, Zhuowen could clearly feel that the atmosphere in Fansha City had become extremely solemn. There was a sense of panic at the slightest sound. Arriving at the city gate of Fansha City, Zhuowen found that the city gate had been sealed. There were also heavy guards on both sides of the city gate. This person is really bold. He actually dared to kidnap Hongshan of the Jianghong Trading Company. You have to know that Hongshan's background is not small. She is Wu Han's granddaughter. Suddenly, there was a burst of discussion by the city gate. Zhuowen walked over and found that there was a piece of wallpaper pasted on the city wall. On the wallpaper, there was a drawing of his portrait. Fortunately, after Zhuowen left the inn, he had changed his appearance. So although many people were talking about him, they didn't recognize him. And from the surrounding discussion, Zhuowen could tell that Fansha City had been completely sealed off by the Jianghong Trading Company. If one wanted to enter or leave the city, they had to go through a strict inspection. Once they were found to be of unknown origin, they would be immediately captured by the Jianghong Trading Company. Zhuowen frowned. He didn't expect the Jianghong Trading Company to be so ruthless as to seal off the entire Fansha City. Zhuowen's shapeless all-life had a very strong concealment effect. It was almost impossible for anyone below the Void Sky realm to recognize him. Therefore, the only person Zhuowen was afraid of was the owner of the Jianghong Trading Company, Wu Han. However, from Hongshan, he found out that Wu Han wasn't in the Fansha Star at the moment. However, he would be back soon. Zhuowen planned to settle Xiao Tong and the others' matters before Wu Han returned. Then, he planned to head to the core star region of the Great Brahma Domain. After all, his destination was the Great Brahma Domains Yin, Qing, Yuan, and Quebec. Suddenly, the sound of horse hooves could be heard. At the end of the street, a group of tall horses galloped over. These horses weren't ordinary horses. Each of them was tall, mighty, and spirited. This was a fleet of carriages. The guards inside were all powerful. They were basically at the late heaven god realm and above. There were even a few true gods. The Dazzling Light Trading Company is here for business. Please open the door. At the front of the fleet of carriages, a middle-aged man with eyes like torches spoke coldly to the soldiers blocking the city gate. It's actually the Dazzling Light Trading Company. The Jianghong Trading Company wouldn't offend the Dazzling Light Trading Company just because they sealed off the city. Chapter 1952. Song Renqingzhuowen used his divine sense to check the convoy and found that the strongest person in the convoy was only a true god. 2 disasters. Judging from his aura, he should be similar to Hao Tianyun, who had chased after him. As for the guards at the city gate, although they were heavily guarded, they were not very strong. There was only a true god. 1 disaster standing guard. It was impossible for there to be stronger cultivators in the surroundings. After all, this was just the city gate. Thinking of this, Zhuowen revealed a determined look. Then, his divine sense began to quietly spread out and enveloped the surroundings. All life has no form, all things have a beginning. A low voice slowly sounded. Suddenly, the area within 1,000 meters of the city gate was enveloped by Zhuowen's divine sense. Then, a huge illusion appeared. In an instant, the surrounding cultivators all looked absent-minded. Even the true god. 2 disasters at the front of the convoy could not help but look absent-minded. At this moment, Zhuowen threw the spirit ring in his hand into the nearest carriage that was transporting living things. Then, he activated a technique and entered the spirit ring's space. The illusion disappeared. Many of the surrounding cultivators looked confused. Just now, they seemed to be dizzy. They all held their foreheads and felt a little strange and surprised. The cold middle-aged man at the front of the convoy frowned slightly. He was actually absent-minded just now. At his level of cultivation, it was rare for him to be absent-minded. However, he had just experienced such a situation. Although he was puzzled, the middle-aged man did not feel anything wrong and did not pay too much attention to it. The true god. 1 disaster in charge of the city gate walked out. He sized up the middle-aged man and said in a deep voice, "Since it is the Dazzling Light Trading Company, we should not obstruct you. However, you also know about our Jianghong Trading Company. Let us search your convoy. When the time comes, we will naturally let you go." "Who do you think you are?" The middle-aged man snorted coldly. His right palm suddenly blasted out. Powerful star god power roared and slammed heavily on the true god. 1 disaster. The true god. 1 disaster spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated dozens of steps. He stared gloomily at the middle-aged man and said, "Isn't your Dazzling Light Trading Company too arrogant? I advise your Jianghong Trading Company not to provoke our Dazzling Light Trading Company. Our trading company's master, Lord Luo Pengfei, has already ascended the void sky twice. He's not someone your Jiang Hong Trading Company's Wu Han can compare to. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone in the surroundings was shocked. Everyone knew that the cultivations of the three great trading companies were on par with each other, and all of them were at the 10,000 longevity stage. They never expected that the dazzling light trading company's Luo Pengfei had actually broken through. It looked like the tripartite balance of power of the three great trading companies would be tilted to one side. Just as the true god was about to speak, a gray-robed old man arrived at the city gates. He glanced indifferently at the middle-aged man and said, "Open the gates and let them out." This was the gray-robed elder who had followed Sequoia to hunt down Zhuowen. Hearing this, the one disaster true god did not dare to speak nonsense and hurriedly opened the city gate. The middle-aged man rode on a large horse and cupped his hands together towards the gray-robed old man from a distance. He shouted and led the convoy out of the city with a whistle. The gray-robed old man silently looked at the departing convoy, his eyes full of gloominess. Although the middle-aged man was also a true god of two disasters, his strength was definitely not as strong as the gray-robed old man. The reason why the middle-aged man was so arrogant was mainly because Luo Pengfei of the Dazzling Light Trading Company had successfully ascended the void sky twice. In addition, Wu Han of the Jiang Hong Trading Company was not in the Fansha star at the moment. Now that the Jiang Hong Trading Company was weak, the gray-robed old man was so patient. In the spirit ring, Zhuowen's soul consciousness slowly emerged. When he found that the convoy was already far away from the Fansha city, he heaved a sigh of relief. Although his cultivation was not high, his soul consciousness was extremely powerful. Especially after being tempered by the starry sky quenching stone, Zhuowen's soul consciousness was even more powerful. Even a true god of two disasters would find it difficult to detect his soul consciousness. The Dazzling Light Trading Company should be going to the Songren City this time. You can wait for the convoy to arrive at the Songren City. In front of Zhuowen, Sequoia's beautiful eyes were filled with indifference as she spoke coldly. Sequoia seemed to have accepted her fate. She did not beg Zhuowen to let her go. Instead, she looked extremely calm. Zhuowen looked at Sequoia indifferently. Then, he closed his eyes and sat down cross-legged. At the same time, he took out a bucket of fire spirit juice and started to absorb it to cultivate. The fire spirit juice contained extremely powerful energy. Moreover, it could increase the chances of advancing to the true god realm. Although it was difficult for Devour to advance to the true god realm with his powerful talent, absorbing the fire spirit juice was still beneficial to him. Sequoia's beautiful eyes moved slightly. She stared at the bucket of fire spirit juice next to Zhuowen. Especially when she saw how extravagant Zhuowen was using the fire spirit juice, Sequoia's mouth twitched. The fire spirit juice was extremely precious. Even though Sequoia was the granddaughter of the Jiang Hong Trading Company, she did not dare to use the fire spirit juice as extravagantly as Zhuowen. How much fire spirit juice does this guy have? Sequoia was a little shocked as she thought to herself. 5 days later, the Dazzling Light Trading Company's convoy arrived at the Songren City. Zhuowen found out from Sequoia that the Dazzling Light Trading Company had come to the Song family to discuss the matter of the black and yellow aura. Therefore, Zhuowen did not leave the convoy. He planned to find an opportunity to leave after entering the Song family. Moreover, he also found out from Sequoia that the Song family did not have any Void Sky expert. Since there weren't any Void Sky experts, Zhuowen wasn't afraid. His all-life formless had already been cultivated to the final stage of mastery. If he deliberately concealed himself, cultivators below the Void Sky realm wouldn't be able to detect him. Zhuowen's divine sense discovered that the Song family's master had personally come out to welcome the middle-aged man. Moreover, he had invited all the true gods of the Dazzling Light Trading Company to enter the Song family. As for the goods of the dazzling light trading company, the Song family's master had arranged for several people to unload them. After the goods in Zhuowen's spiritual ring were placed in an empty warehouse, Zhuowen came out of the spiritual ring. Beside him was the enchanting Sequoia. Do you really know where Xiao Tong and the others are being held by the Song family? Zhuowen asked with a frown. Sequoia chuckled and said, of course. The Song family does not only cooperate with the Dazzling Light Trading Company. They also have dealings with the other two trading companies. When I was transporting goods, I also came to the Song family. I know the Song family better than you do. After saying this, Sequoia moved closer to Zhuowen and said with a charming smile, Didn't you seal my divine power? Are you afraid that I will run away? However, you have to be responsible for me. My strength is not present, so you have to protect me well. Lead the way. Zhuowen stretched out his right hand and grabbed Sequoia's slender waist. After saying this, he quietly left this place. While the Song family's master was discussing matters with the people of the Dazzling Light Trading Company, a young man was holding a charming woman by the waist and shuttling back and forth within the Song family. Strangely, the patrolling guards of the Song family did not notice this strange man and woman at all. Your concealment technique is really powerful. Even a true god can't find you. Sequoia very naturally hooked her hands around Zhuowen's neck and put her beautiful face next to Zhuowen's ear, breathing hot air. However, just as Sequoia finished speaking, Zhuowen's right hand suddenly loosened. Sequoia let out a low cry and almost fell to the ground. You bastard! Sequoia's face was red. She coldly stared at Zhuowen, the anger in her eyes even more intense. Zhuowen ignored her and said slowly, This should be the residence of the Song family's young master. Are you sure Xiao Tong and the others are being held here? Soon, Sequoia's expression returned to normal. She chuckled and said, The Song family's young master is famous for being a pervert. The crepe myrtle sect's senior sister Yunchuyu is unparalleled in beauty. Even I was moved when I saw her. The Song family's young master fell in love at first sight. Then, he asked our Jianghong Trading Company to take down the crepe myrtle sect and the others. The price was that they planned to give up 10 feet of black-yellow Oregon. Zhuowen nodded. His divine sense enveloped the entire residence in front of him and searched inside and out. He did not find Xiao Tong, who he was looking for, in this residence. However, Zhuowen did not lose his patience. Instead, he searched the area again and soon discovered something unusual. Let's go in, Zhuowen said and led Sequoia into the residence. The two entered an elegant study. Sequoia looked around the study and looked at Zhuowen with her beautiful eyes. She wondered what Zhuowen was going to do. Zhuowen came to the bookshelf and gently turned the incense burner on it. The mechanism behind the bookshelf sounded and revealed a dark passage. Zhuowen's divine sense extended into the passage and reached the end. He found that there was a large basement below. Not only that, but Zhuowen also found many things that made him frown. Because in this basement there were many torture instruments. Other than torture instruments, there were also many props. Zhuowen saw these props and knew that these props were used to toy with women. In addition, there were more than 10 female corpses hanging in the basement. These female corpses were covered with wounds and looked frightened. They had most likely been tortured horribly when they were alive. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. This Song family's young master was really perverted. He actually took pleasure in torturing women. Zhuowen also found Xiao Tong's figure in a huge iron cell in the basement. Other than Xiao Tong, there were 7 or 8 other women in the cell. What attracted Zhuowen's attention was the woman beside Xiao Tong. This woman was extremely beautiful. She was definitely one of the most beautiful women Zhuowen had ever seen in his life. She was almost the same as Zhuowen's wife, Mu Qinshu. Although Moyan Wushang was also very beautiful, his beauty was mainly reflected in his temperament. However, the woman in front of him was so beautiful that it was suffocating. She was definitely at the level of a calamity. Sequoia, who was beside Zhuowen, was also a rare beauty. However, in front of this woman, she was still inferior. Zhuowen knew that this beautiful woman should be the crepe myrtle sect's senior sister, Yunqiu. "What's wrong with you?" Sequoia also noticed the abnormality on his face, and could not help but ask. Chapter 1953. Saving someone. A strange look appeared in Hong Shan's eyes. This was the first time she had seen Zhuowen show such an expression. She curled her lips and giggled. "What's there that's not suitable for me to see? I'm going to take a look." With that, Hong Shan took the lead and entered the underground passageway. Zhuowen frowned slightly. Just as he was about to stop her, he discovered that Hong Shan had completely disappeared into the passageway. He had no choice but to follow her. Although Hong Shan seemed to be rather curious about the things below, Zhuowen could still sense that she was extremely vigilant. She was secretly paying attention to the passageway in case there were any traps or mechanisms. When Hong Shan completely entered the underground passageway, she suddenly cried out. However, Zhuowen immediately covered her mouth and nose. The two of them finally arrived in the underground passageway. Hong Shan stared in horror at the dozen or so female corpses that had been hung up in the air. These female corpses had died extremely miserably. They were covered in wounds. It was obvious that they had been tortured terribly when they were alive. It could be said that the torturer was a complete pervert. "Didn't I tell you that the things in this underground passageway aren't suitable for you to see?" Zhuowen said indifferently. Hong Shan's body softened as she gently leaned against Zhuowen's chest. She actually felt strangely at ease when she felt his broad chest. "Song Yan really isn't human. I knew he was lustful, but I never thought he was a pervert." Hong Shan's eyes were filled with anger as she cursed softly. Zhuowen shook his head. With a wave of his sleeve, a ball of fire shot out and burned all the female corpses to ashes. Rather than leaving their corpses in this underground passageway, it would be better for Zhuowen to cremate them so that they could rest in peace. After dealing with the female corpses, Zhuowen walked towards the prison at the front of the underground passageway. "Big Brother Zhua." Within the prison, Xiao Tong immediately recognized Zhuowen. She could not help but exclaim in surprise. The beautiful woman sitting beside Xiao Tong, Yunqiu, gently raised her head and carefully stared at the young man before her. During this period of time in the dungeon, she had heard Xiao Tong mention Zhuowen a lot, especially when she heard that Zhuowen had killed Qi Qing, who was at the peak of the heaven god realm as a late heaven god. She was quite surprised, but she did not feel that it was too impressive. A late heavenly god could also kill a peak heavenly god. After all, her talent in the crepe myrtle sect was top-notch. Her strength far surpassed other heavenly gods of the same level. She had once killed a peak heavenly god. "It's very dangerous here. You won't be able to do anything even if you come in. Moreover, this prison was set up by the arcane masters of the Song family. You won't be able to save us." Zhuowen had just arrived in front of the dungeon when Yunqiu shook her head and sighed softly. Xiao Tong's beautiful eyes dimmed. Yunqiu was right. Their dungeon had restrictions set up by arcane divine masters, and those below the level of true divinity would find it difficult to break through. Moreover, even if they tried to break through by force, Song Yan would probably immediately know. Once they alerted the enemy, they would be surrounded by the people of the Song family. They were still fine, as they had already been captured by Song Yan. However, this would also harm Xiao Tong. Zhuowen smiled slightly and said, "If you don't try, how do you know that I won't be able to save you?" As he spoke, Zhuowen took out the iron-dew sword with his right hand and condensed his star god energy into it. "Are you crazy? You won't be able to break through this restriction. Instead, you'll attract Song Yan's attention." Yunqiu's beautiful face changed slightly, and she could not help but shout at him. Zhuowen completely ignored Yunqiu. The person he had come to save this time was Xiao Tong. Although he, Zhuowen, was not a good person, he was not a bad person either. Since Xiao Tong did not expose him after being captured by the Jianghong Trading Company, it could be seen that Xiao Tong clearly distinguished between kindness and hatred. She did not implicate Zhuowen because of this. It was because of Xiao Tong's seemingly insignificant actions that touched Zhuowen's heart. In the world of martial arts, the path of cultivation had always been cold-blooded and selfish. In the face of life and death benefits, many cultivators would throw away some of their good qualities. They would always think of themselves and would not consider others. However, Xiao Tong was different. Therefore, even though Zhuowen knew that Xiao Tong had offended the Jianghong Trading Company, he still acted without hesitation to save her. Big brother Zhuo. Xiao Tong looked worriedly at Zhuowen, who had swung the iron-dew sword. Her beautiful eyes were filled with guilt. She was not worried about herself, but she was worried that she would implicate Zhuowen. Sometimes the dark moon. Zhuowen swung his sword and a crescent moon rose. The blade of the sword was like a ray of light as it fiercely slammed into the dungeon. Rumble! The surface of the dungeon was overflowing with light, and a terrifying restriction appeared, blocking that terrifying crescent moon. The entire basement shook violently because of this terrifying collision, and the huge mansion above the basement shook even more violently because of it. In the mansion, a man who was lying in the hall and enjoying the clothes of several maids suddenly stood up. His gaze was dark as he said, "Someone broke into the basement." As he spoke, the man slapped away the maid who was serving him and hurriedly rushed to the study. At the same time, several shadows were faintly discernible beside the man. The aura of these shadows was extremely terrifying. They were all true god-level existences. In the meeting hall, the Song family's patriarch, Song Jiahao, was discussing the details of the next transaction with the black-clothed man from the Dazzling Light Trading Company when he suddenly felt the ground shake. "Patriarch Song, what's going on?" the black-clothed man asked with a frown. Song Jiahao frowned. His divine sense was extended, and he naturally sensed that the tremor came from his eldest son's mansion. He waved his hand and said, "Brother Tang, there's no need to be surprised. Perhaps it's just my son messing around." The black-clothed man nodded. He had heard a little about the Song family's eldest son. It was said that the Song family's eldest son was extremely talented and his cultivation speed was extremely fast. However, he was extremely lecherous and often kidnapped female cultivators back to his mansion. As for the fate of those female cultivators, the black-clothed man did not need to guess to know that they most likely did not end well. Thinking about how the Song family's eldest son had caused such a big commotion because of women, a trace of disdain flashed across the black-clothed man's eyes. In his opinion, cultivators should prioritize their cultivation. Women were just for fun, and there was no need to specifically spend energy on them. At this moment, in the basement, Zhuowen took a few steps back and stared at the restriction in front of the dungeon with a strange gaze. He did not expect the restriction set up by the Divine Arcana Master to be so strong. "Brother Zhuo, hurry up and run. Song Yan should already know that someone has broken the restriction here. If you don't leave now, it'll be too late," Xiao Tong hurriedly said. Yun Chuyu's beautiful eyes frowned slightly. "You're overestimating yourself. You're simply harming others and yourself. However, seeing that you saved Xiao Tong's life, I won't blame you. Hurry up and leave this place and go to the Crepe Myrtle sect. Inform them of what happened between Xiao Tong and me. Our Crepe Myrtle sect's patriarch will definitely not treat you unfairly." "It's already too late. Why don't I just break the restriction?" Zhuowen laughed loudly. Wielding the Tielu sword, he slashed out again, and a crescent moon rose up once more. This time, the surface of the crescent moon was filled with a dense purple tint. From afar, it looked like a rising purple moon. Slash! Zhuowen slashed out again. This time, he added all 5 layers of Dao intent to the sometimes of the dark moon. The power of this purple moon was 5 times stronger than before. Seeing Zhuowen's stubbornness, Yun Chuyu was so angry that her face paled. Was this person deaf? Could he not understand her words? Crack! The instant the purple moon slashed onto the restriction, a world-shaking tremor spread throughout the entire dungeon. Then, the restriction collapsed in an instant. It broke. Yunchuyu stared blankly at this scene. She forcefully swallowed the rest of her words back into her stomach. Even Xiao Tong and the other women locked up in the dungeon revealed expressions of disbelief. However, they were quickly filled with joy. Rumble! The purple moon was far too powerful. After breaking through the restriction, it suddenly erupted, forming a powerful energy. If one looked from outside the dungeon, they would be able to see a huge purple moon slowly rise up. As for Song Yan's estate, it had been reduced to dust the moment the purple moon rose up. It had been reduced to ruins. Swish! Song Yan, who was originally rushing to the study, suddenly jumped and dodged the collapsed house. His eyes were spitting fire as he stared at the mansion that had completely turned into ruins. He gnashed his teeth and roared, "Which bastard not only broke into this young master's basement but also destroyed this young master's mansion? Damn it!" Bang! The ruins suddenly broke open, and then a young man rushed out of the ruins with a few figures. "Who are you?" Song Yan stared fixedly at Zhuo, his eyes blazing. However, he quickly calmed down because he saw Xiao Tong, Yunchuyu, and 7 or 8 other female cultivators that he had imprisoned in the dungeon. He knew very well how powerful the restriction in the dungeon was. It was impossible for anyone below true God to destroy it. However, the young man before him was only a late heavenly god. How had he managed to destroy the restriction? Has this person concealed his cultivation? Song Yan asked softly. Swish! 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 As soon as Song Yan finished speaking, 3 figures shot out from the void behind him. One of them, who was clearly the leader, said in a deep voice, "I can't see any signs of this person concealing his cultivation." "Alright, then capture him alive. I want to slowly torture him to death." Song Yan ordered indifferently. "Yes." The black-clothed man nodded and immediately shot towards Zhuo with 2 other black-clothed men. "What should we do?" Xiao Tong asked in a panic. Yunchuyu's beautiful eyes flickered. For a moment, she could not make up her mind. Meanwhile, Hong Shan stood where she was with a smile, not worried at all. She had more or less experienced Zhuowen's strength. These 3 black-clothed men were only true gods. She knew that they were no match for Zhuowen. Zhuowen waved his sleeve and released the fire beast. He said to Xiao Tong, "Miss Xiao, you guys go up first. I'll meet up with you guys later." After saying that, Zhuowen summoned Xiao Tong, Yunchuyu and the others onto the huge flame beast. He then gave the huge flame beast an order, and the huge flame beast let out a low roar. It turned into a blur and disappeared from the place. As for Hong Shan, Zhuowen held her slender waist. Without waiting for her to struggle, he sent her into the spirit ring. "You really think you're smart. You clearly have a true god mount, but you actually let the group of women escape first. You're the one who stays behind to court death. I admire your spirit," Song Yan said with a cold smile. One of the 3 black-clothed men who were pouncing towards Zhuowen immediately changed direction and rushed towards the direction where the fire beast had escaped. Swish! Chapter 1954. Master Dragon unleashed his might. The eyes of the black-clothed man, who had been cut in 2, were filled with shock. Just as he was about to struggle, the thunder-fire sword was extremely fast. It suddenly pierced through the black-clothed man's forehead and completely destroyed his soul. The thunder-fire sword itself was extraordinary. Plus, Xiao He had inherited all of the thunder-fire sword's inheritance, so he was extremely powerful. Plus, the man in black was caught off guard, so he was instantly killed by Xiao He. As expected of Master Long. The elegance of this sword strike really makes me admire you so much. After the thunder-fire sword killed the man in black, the blood immortal was brought out by the thunder-fire sword. At this moment, the blood immortal was following the thunder-fire sword with a flattering face. Her face was full of flattery, and she was praising things that even Zhuowen felt ashamed of. Xiao He sat on the hilt of the sword and waved his little claws. He said arrogantly, "What is this? A mere true god, just a piece of trash. If I, Master Dragon, wanted to attack, do you think he could survive? As for the other two, if you want to die, feel free to find this Lord Dragon. See if this Lord Dragon doesn't kill you. Master Dragon is mighty. His divine power is boundless. He is invincible and undefeatable. Empyrean gods and true gods are all trash." The Blood Immortal yelled at the side. Zhuowen stood on the side and rubbed his forehead. He felt a headache coming on as he looked at the two of them. Ever since Xiao He took the Blood Immortal in, the two of them were birds of a feather. They were getting along better and better. It was as if they regretted not having met earlier. Every time the two of them appeared, they would act cool. Zhuowen couldn't stand it anymore. The other two black-clothed men, who were originally attacking Zhuo, when all stopped in their track. Their eyes were filled with shock as they looked at the thunder-fire sword that had instantly killed their companion. There was a trace of fear in their eyes, but there was even more anger. It was just a mere extreme heavenly divine artifact. How could it be so arrogant? And the blood monster next to the broken sword said a series of flattering words. Even they couldn't stand it anymore. Kill it! The two black-clothed men instantly came to an agreement and gave up on attacking Zhuowen. Instead, they turned to Thunderfire Sword and Blood Immortal. Xiao He, who was still acting cool, felt his heart skip a beat when he saw the stance of the two men in black. After all, it was only a top-quality heavenly divine artifact. The reason why it was able to kill that black-clothed man earlier was mainly because it had grasped the timing perfectly. Adding on the fact that it had taken the black-clothed man by surprise, it managed to kill that black-clothed man. If it was a head-on battle, Xiao He would not be able to kill a one-disaster true god so easily. Now that two more powerful true gods had joined forces to deal with it, Xiao He did not dare to accept the challenge. However, although Xiao He wanted to retreat, her aura was not weak at all. Two mere one-disaster real gods, in my eyes, are simply trash. You two trash still need this dragon grandpa to take action? After saying that, Xiao He immediately brought Blood Immortal behind Zhuowen and said with perfect articulation, "This man was trained by me. You two trash are not even a match for him. Bring it on. Motherf *Ker. This sword is too cheap. I must destroy it." The leader of the black-clothed men was furious. Without saying anything, he flew towards Zhuowen. It was obvious that he planned to kill Zhuowen and Xiao He together. Seeing the two black-clothed men flying towards him again, Zhuowen's gaze became serious, and he held the Tielu sword in his right hand tightly. Although Zhuowen was in the later stage of the Heaven God realm, his power was far beyond his cultivation. The Tielu sword could not keep up with his power. Zhuowen even realized that as he continued to use the Tielu sword, there was a crack on the surface of the Tielu sword. It was obvious that the Tielu sword could not withstand his violent energy as he continued to use it. Zhuowen sighed softly. After returning from Song Rinqing, he was planning to purchase a true god artifact-grade divine sword. Swoosh swoosh. Then, the two black-clothed men flew in front of Zhuowen. The two of them split into two directions. They held true god weapons and attacked Zhuowen from both sides. The violent divine power turned into a terrifying whirlpool and trapped Zhuowen in the middle. It was as though it was going to squeeze Zhuowen into a meat patty. Zhuowen pointed with his right finger and performed Massacre Acheron Finger. The violent Acheron Finger flowed out. In the depth of the Acheron Finger there were two huge yellow fingers. The patterns on the surface of the yellow fingers could be seen clearly. It was as though they were real fingers. Zhuowen stood on one of the Massacre Acheron Finger. He held the Tielu sword in his hand and slashed out. The sword light was like rain as it fell in front of him. Moreover, the surface of the rain-like sword light was filled with purple in tint. It was as though it was purple rain that was falling down. The two black-clothed men had serious gazes. They were in a sorry state when dealing with the purple rain. PFFF. The two massacre Acheron finger landed on their chests. Although the two of them were on guard, they still spat out blood and their faces were pale. Zhuowen performed sword-piercing thistles. The thistles formed by sword shadows bound the two retreating men. Then, Zhuowen casually walked past the two men. The two sword lights quickly slashed through the two men's eyebrows. The two black-clothed men's divine souls were extinguished. They fell into midair and lost their lives. Song Yan's pupils shrank. He stared at Zhuowen and immediately retreated. Song Yan was not weak, but he was only a one-calamity true god. Even the three black-clothed men were instantly killed. How could he dare to face Zhuowen? You dare to kill our Song family? You have guts. Song Yan shouted as he quietly retreated. He had already secretly informed his father that it wouldn't be long before his father and the experts of the Song family arrived here, and this person was about to become a turtle in a jar. I still dare to kill you. Zhuowen stood in place without moving, the corners of his mouth filled with a mocking smile. Song Yan naturally saw the expression on Zhuowen's face. He immediately realized that something was wrong. With a whoosh, a black flame enveloped him. You're just trash. I'll destroy you in one move. Within the black flame, Xiao Hei's arrogant voice sounded. By the time the black flame faded, Song Yan had already turned into ashes. Zhuowen silently looked at Song Yan, who was already dead. There was no pity in his heart. Song Yan was a scum. It could be seen from the dozen or so female corpses in the basement. Zhuowen was sure that Song Yan had killed more than a dozen female cultivators. It was just that most of the female corpses should have been disposed of by Song Yan. Bastard, you dare to kill my son. Die, however, just after Xiao Hei killed Song Yan, the Song family's patriarch, Song Jiahao, and the Song family's upper echelons rushed over and saw this scene. Song Jiahao exploded on the spot and rushed towards the Thunderfire sword. When Xiao Hei saw Song Jiahao's terrifying aura, he was so scared that he hurriedly flew to Zhuowen's side and boasted shamelessly, "So what if I kill your son? You better keep your mouth clean. Otherwise, I'll chop you up too." Dragon Master, this seems to be a true god of three disasters. We shouldn't be his match, right? Blood Immortal said fearfully. Damn it. What's a true god of three disasters? Zhuowen, this brat, he was trained by me. I don't need to do anything. He can take care of this old thing. Xiao Hei was still boasting shamelessly. Good, good, good. You're just a sword spirit of a heavenly god artifact. How dare you be so arrogant? I'll pull out your sword spirit and burn it for 81 days. I'll let you suffer endless pain. I'll let you know the consequences of offending me. Song Jiahao was so angry that his beard was trembling. Just as he was about to ask the other higher-ups of the Song family to attack together and take down Zhuowen and Xiao Hei suddenly shouted, "Old thing, how shameless are you? Look at this brat next to me. He's just a late heavenly god. Look at those old guys next to you. They're all true gods of two disasters." Zhuowen naturally knew what Xiao Hei meant. He said calmly, "Old thing, I'm challenging you, true god of three disasters, as a late heavenly god. I'd like to see how many moves you, true god of three disasters, can take. Of course, if you think that you're not my match, you can ask them to attack together. I won't refuse anyone." The black-clothed man from Dazzling Light trading firm looked at the boastful man and soared with interest. However, he was secretly shaking his head. The young man was only a late heavenly god. No matter how powerful he was, how could he be Song Jiahao's match? Although he could avoid being besieged by such provocation, he would still die in the end. Song Jiahao naturally knew about Zhuowen and Xiao Hei's motive. However, he didn't care at all. Be it besieging or fighting one-on-one, he would definitely die. In the face of absolute power, your little tricks are nothing but fleeting clouds. Song Jiahao sneered and took out a long saber. The saber was brimming with divine light. It was obviously a high-quality true god weapon. Old thing, you talk a lot. If you want to fight, then fight. Why are you chattering like a woman? Xiao He mocked mercilessly. Song Jiahao was furious. He raised his saber and slashed at Zhuowen. The saber light spread across like a bridge. At the same time, Song Jiahao's consciousness locked onto Zhuowen. The saber light followed Song Jiahao's consciousness and slashed at Zhuowen. Feeling Song Jiahao's powerful consciousness, Zhuowen was stunned and revealed a strange expression. Then, the soul-absorbing divine needle flew out from Zhuowen's glabella. It was extremely fast and stabbed at Song Jiahao's consciousness. It followed Song Jiahao's consciousness and flew towards Song Jiahao's glabella at an extremely fast speed. As the soul-absorbing divine needle had been added with the glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand, it had the terrifying power to devour souls. Its power was more than 2 times stronger than before. Song Jiahao only felt a pain in his glabella. He was shocked to find that the power of his soul was being stripped out involuntarily. He was so frightened that he quickly stabilized his soul. But very quickly, a golden streak of light shot towards his glabella at an extremely fast speed. He was caught off guard and hurriedly sealed his soul. He didn't even dare to withdraw the divine sense that had shot out, for fear that the golden streak of light would take advantage of it and enter his soul. And it was also when Song Jiahao was stunned that Zhuowen had already arrived in front of Song Jiahao silently. At this moment, Zhuowen directly used the 4 great sword moves: piercing thistles and thorns, first appearance of sword light, sun in the sky, and time of the dark moon. 5th level Dao meaning surged out and dyed the 4 great sword moves purple. Xiao He acted according to the situation. Black flames surrounded him, and he slashed at Song Jiahao's waist mercilessly. Chapter 1955. Provoke and escape. Song Jiahao was caught off guard, and he was attacked by Zhuowen and Xiao He. Song Jiahao's eyes widened in anger. His originally tightened spirit suddenly loosened as the soul-assimilating divine needle followed Song Jiahao's spirit and rushed into the center of his brows. Almost half of it had sunk in. Ah! Song Jiahao screamed. He was true god 3 disasters after all, and his spirit was extremely strong. He immediately blocked the soul-assimilating divine needle. However, the soul-assimilating divine needle was different from before. It was mixed with glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand, a rare and powerful material. Its attack on the spirit was much more terrifying than before. Even though Song Jiahao was true god 3 disasters and his spirit was extremely strong, his spirit was still greatly affected as he was caught off guard. Zhuowen also realized that Song Jiahao was struggling to block the soul-assimilating divine needle, and he probably couldn't spare any energy to deal with him. However, he also knew that Song Jiahao was different from the other true gods that he had met before. Even though Song Jiahao was just an ordinary true god 3 disasters, it was still difficult for him to fight against such an existence with his current power. Hence, he had to take advantage of this great opportunity to severely injure Song Jiahao. After slashing out 4 sword moves, Zhuowen's heaven-devouring eye split open and released 10 purplish-black lightning instantly. Not only that, he used Massacre Finger of Acheron again. With the purple intent of the level 5 Dao Will, he dyed the Acheron River into a purple river that filled the sky. Splash! The purplish-black lightning accompanied the purple river and instantly drowned Song Jiahao. Then, Song Jiahao's groan was heard. Bang! The soul-assimilating divine needle flew backward and was caught by Zhuowen. He knew that the soul-assimilating divine needle didn't completely enter Song Jiahao's glabella. However, the soul-assimilating divine needle definitely caused quite a bit of damage to Song Jiahao. Plus, the attack that Zhuowen and Xiao He released together was even more terrifying. Even though Song Jiahao was true god 3 disasters, he probably wouldn't be unscathed after receiving the full power of the 2 of them. Bang! As the purple river receded, Song Jiahao spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground in a sorry state. His face was pale as he spat out a mouthful of blood. The complexions of the Song family's upper echelons and the black-clothed man from the Dazzling Light Trading Company froze. Before they could even react, Song Jiahao had been defeated just like that? Patriarch. The upper echelons of the Song family rushed towards Song Jiahao, who had fallen to the ground, and helped him up. Although Song Jiahao appeared to be in a sorry state, his injuries were not serious. This was because he was wearing an inner armor with astonishing defense. Although Zhuowen's attack was powerful, it was actually weakened by the inner armor. On the other hand, Song Jiahao's divine soul had suffered much more serious injuries than his external injuries. At this moment, Song Jiahao could still feel the chaos in his divine soul space. He knew very well that if the soul-assimilating divine needle really entered his spiritual space, his soul might be annihilated. Who exactly is this kid? Song Jiahao was shocked and angry. He stared at the soul-assimilating divine needle floating around Zhuowen with extreme fear. This thing was too terrifying. Not only could it devour divine sense, it could even affect him through the divine sense. Yo, old man, didn't you want to kill this dragon lord? Do you want to extract my sword spirit and burn it for 81 days? This dragon lord is right in front of you. Come on, this dragon lord is waiting. Xiao He stood at the sword hilt arrogantly. His posture made him look like he was asking for a beating. Let's go together and kill them. Song Jiahao roared angrily. He no longer cared about his chaotic divine soul. He took a step forward and rushed towards Zhuowen as fast as a shuttle. The 7 or 8 upper echelons of the Song clan followed closely behind him, forming a circle around Zhuowen. This dragon lord is not playing with you anymore. Trash like you is not fun at all. I'll let you go today. Xiao He continued to boast shamelessly. Then, he wrapped around the blood immortal and turned into a black line that shot into the distance. Zhuowen naturally understood. He stepped onto the thunder fire sword and had no intention of staying. Real God 3 Disasters was indeed powerful. Zhuowen estimated that he was not his match yet. Hence, he did not want to be entangled with Song Jiahao anymore. Naturally, it was better to leave. However, Zhuowen knew that once his doppelganger reached the peak divine realm, Song Jiahao might not be his match. With the soul assimilating divine needle's unexpected effect, he might be able to kill Song Jiahao. However, he could not do that now. Zhuowen had used his scheme to gain the upper hand. However, he still could not cause much harm to Song Jiahao. He knew that if he continued to be entangled with Song Jiahao, he would be asking for trouble. You still want to escape? Impossible. Song Jiahao was unable to restrain his anger. That broken sword spirit was truly too despicable. It clearly wanted to escape, yet it actually made the reason sound so dignified. It even insulted him as trash. Song Jiahao was unable to restrain his anger. That broken sword spirit was truly too despicable. He wanted nothing more than to chase after it and tear its mouth apart. Zhuowen felt that Song Jiahao's powerful soul consciousness was firmly locked on him. The distance between them was getting closer. Zhuowen knew how powerful Real God 3 Disasters was. Song Jiahao's speed was much faster than the Thunder Fire Sword. Xiao He, enter my inner space, Zhuowen said, and put the Thunder Fire Sword and the Blood Immortal into his inner space. Then, his back began to protrude and a pair of huge dragon wings spread out. On the surface of the dragon wings, 9 baby candle dragons were entangled. Boom! The dragon wings flapped and a thunder-like sound was transmitted from the dragon wings. Then, Zhuowen's speed increased by tens or hundreds of times. In an instant, the distance between him and Song Jiahao increased. In the end, Song Jiahao's soul consciousness lost track of him. Song Jiahao stopped and stared blankly at the disappearing figure. Then, he roared, "Bastard, don't let me know who you are. Otherwise, I will make you regret it. The black-clothed man from the dazzling light trading firm was not far away. Apart from shock, he was also deep in thought. He knew that the candle dragon wings that Zhuowen had released were from the Jianghong trading firm's auction. It seemed that the person who had bid for the candle dragon wings and kidnapped Sequoia was this person. This person, the black-clothed man, seemed to have thought of something, and his face turned ugly. He knew why this person had appeared here. He was probably following the dazzling light trading firm's fleet. In a desolate desert, the giant flaming beast quietly landed. Its huge body shook, shaking off the several women on its body. The giant flaming beast was originally a wild and untamed exotic beast. The reason it was tamed by Zhuowen was because of Devour's powerful pressure. It hated other cultivators. Yun Chuyu and Xiao Tong gently landed on the ground. The other women were in a sorry state. Their cultivations were lower than Yun Chuyu and Xiao Tong's. I wonder how Big Brother Zhuo is doing? Xiao Tong asked worriedly. Yun Chuyu shook her head and said, Junior sister, I think that Zhuowen is doomed. However, he was actually able to take out a true god-level exotic beast to help us escape. He is a man with a true temperament. Xiao Tong's face reddened and she hurriedly said, Senior sister, Big Brother Zhuo and I are not like what you think. We have only known each other for a short time. Moreover, Big Brother Zhuo saved me twice. Now, he has saved me again. I owe him 3 lives. Yun Chuyu seemed to be saying something when a rainbow suddenly swept across the sky. When the rainbow appeared, the giant flaming beast was extremely excited. It came to the rainbow's side and automatically lowered its body. It's Big Brother Zhuo. Xiao Tong's face was filled with surprise, while Yun Chuyu revealed a look of surprise. The 3 people beside Song Yan were all first calamity true gods, especially the black-clothed leader. He was most likely a powerful true god who had survived at least 2 thunder calamities. Yun Chuyu did not believe that Zhuowen would be able to escape from the combined forces of the 3 true gods. Zhuowen, how did you escape from the hands of these 3 true gods? Yun Chuyu also moved forward and asked in surprise. Zhuowen smiled and said, My speed was relatively fast. I was lucky enough to escape. Hearing this, Yun Chuyu frowned. She was clearly not satisfied with Zhuowen's explanation. However, she could do nothing about it. After all, this was Zhuowen's secret. She had no right to ask. Benefactor, thank you for saving our lives. The other female cultivators all moved closer to Zhuowen. Their expressions were filled with excitement. In the basement, they were terrified, especially when they saw Song Yan torture the dozen or so female cultivators to death. It almost drove them crazy. In the end, they were still rescued by Zhuowen. They were extremely grateful to Zhuowen. It's okay. I can't stand that scum Song Yan. It's only right that I save you. Zhuowen smiled. The 2 women expressed their gratitude again, then bid farewell to Zhuowen and left. Why don't the 2 of you leave? Zhuowen looked at Xiao Tong and Yun Chuyu and asked. Xiao Tong shook her head and said, Brother Zhuo, you've helped me too many times. I can't just leave like this. Come with me to the Crepe Myrtle sect. The Crepe Myrtle sect clearly distinguishes between kindness and hatred. We will definitely repay you. Zhuowen was stunned. He did not expect Xiao Tong, this little girl, to be so grateful. There's no need. You should leave first. I still have some matters to attend to at the Song family. Also, Brahmafine City is sealed. It won't be easy for you to return to Brahmafine City now. Zhuowen reminded. What? Brahmafine City is sealed? The transporter is in Brahmafine City. If we can't enter Brahmafine City, we won't be able to return to the Crepe Myrtle sect. Yun Chuyu said with some worry. Zhuowen glanced at Yun Chuyu. This woman was indeed beautiful. Even with a frown, she exuded a myriad of emotions. It was no wonder that Song Yan was so determined to obtain this woman. Brother Zhuo, this is my contact jade token. After you're done with your matters, can you contact us? You've saved me too many times. I want to repay you. Xiao Tong stuffed a jade token into Zhuowen's hand. Zhuowen accepted the jade token without batting an eyelid. Immediately, he turned into a long rainbow and left the place. This time, he came to the Song family of Rinsong City. Saving Xiao Tong was one of his goals. However, his other goal was the Song family's mysterious yellow or vein. Chapter 1956. Seizing the Xian Wang or vein. When Zhuowen arrived at the Song family again, he immediately used the formless world to sneak into the Song family. At this moment, the entire Song Rinqing was in a state of panic. Although the security of the Song family was even tighter, Zhuowen realized that there were not many experts left in the Song family. The death of the young master of the Song family, Song Yen, was not a small matter. After Zhuowen left, Song Jiahao immediately led many cultivators out of the Song Rinqing to search for Zhuowen. This was also the reason why the number of experts in the Song family had decreased drastically. Great, this also gives me a chance to seize the Xian Wang or vein. Zhuowen did not expect Song Jiahao to bring all the experts of the Song family away. He was relieved. With most of the experts of the Song family gone, there would be less obstacles for him to seize the Xian Wang or vein. Zhuowen summoned Hong Shan from his spirit ring and said, "Bring me to the Xian Wang or vein." Hong Shan frowned and said seriously, "I'm afraid it won't be easy. The Xian Wang or vein has always been guarded by the Song family's arcane masters. The formations there are complicated and the restrictions are terrifying. Unless you have the permission of the Song family's higher-ups, you won't be able to break in." "Then I'll force my way in," Zhuowen said calmly. Did you not understand what I said?" Hong Shan could not help but yell. Zhuowen grabbed Sequoia's hand and said, "You're an arcane master yourself, aren't you? Although your disguise is very good, your seduction art is not just a seduction art. It is a seduction art that uses restrictions. You can fool others, but you can't fool me." Hong Shan stared at Zhuowen with her beautiful eyes. She was indeed an arcane master. In the Jianghong trading firm, there were only a few people who knew that. Only the higher-ups of the Jianghong trading firm knew that. Seeing the shock on Hong Shan's face, Zhuowen knew that he had guessed correctly. Although he was also an arcanist, his cultivation level was just too low. He was only a heavenly saint master. He had sensed something when Sequoia had used her charm technique many times before, but he was uncertain. Seeing Zhuowen's expression, Hong Shan knew that she had been tricked. She looked a little annoyed, but she quickly recovered and said, "Zhuowen, since you want to snatch the black-yellow mineral vein, how should we divide it? I'll take 80% and you'll take 20%. In addition, I won't restrain you and set you free," Zhuowen said calmly. Hong Shan was stunned for a moment before she nodded and said, "Deal. Release the shackles on my body. I'll take you to the black-yellow or vein." Zhuowen looked deeply at Sequoia and released the shackles. At the same time, Zhuowen was also on guard against Sequoia. After knowing that Sequoia was an arcane master, Zhuowen knew that she wasn't simple. If not for the fact that Sequoia was defenseless against him, Zhuowen wouldn't have been able to imprison her so easily. "Let's go." After releasing the shackles, Sequoia calmly turned into a fiery red shadow and shot toward the back of the Song family. Zhuowen followed closely behind her. The back mountain of the Song family was heavily guarded. The surface of the mountain was filled with colorful lights. Clearly, there was an extremely powerful restriction in the mountain. The two figures quickly passed through the heavily guarded checkpoint and arrived at the mountain pass. "I need some time to break the formation. Protect me," Sequoia said as she took out the formation flags and began to deduce how to break the formation. Zhuowen naturally didn't dare to disturb Sequoia. Instead, he used all life formless and completely concealed their auras. Sequoia's movements were skillful. She held the formation flags in her hand, and they revolved around her with great familiarity. Under Sequoia's control, the restriction in front of them loosened. It was clear that Sequoia's method of breaking the formation was effective. This entrance can only last for an hour. After we enter, we have to take away the Xian Wang mine within that hour. If we can't, we have to leave within that hour. Otherwise, we'll be discovered by the Arcane God Master here, said the Arcane God Master. Sequoia's expression was extremely serious as she continued, once discovered, the Arcane Master will definitely activate the formation here. This formation isn't like the one in Song Yan's basement. It should be the Arcane Master's painstaking work. Once activated, even the 3 disasters' true gods might be trapped in this formation. Zhuowen nodded and didn't say anything else. He followed Sequoia into the formation. As soon as they entered the formation, Zhuowen's powerful consciousness scanned the entire mountain like a radar. After being tempered by the universe-quenching stone, his consciousness penetrative power was much stronger than other cultivators. The entire mountain was like nothing to him. It's over there. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed as he took the lead. Sequoia was still searching with her consciousness. Seeing Zhuowen suddenly rush out, she had no choice but to follow. When they reached the center of the mountain, Zhuowen punched out and created a huge hole. Then, dense Xian Wang Qi surged out, causing Zhuowen to be pleasantly surprised. After summoning the Thunder Fire Sword, Zhuowen immediately had Xiao He do the hard work of drilling into the mountain. Although Xiao He was cursing and was extremely unwilling, her body was very obedient. She continued to dive into the depths of the mountain, according to Zhuowen's instructions. When they reached the deepest part of the mountain, Zhuowen and Sequoia were both stunned. Then, their eyes lit up. Because their divine consciousness had thoroughly explored the mysterious yellow mineral vein. There were 2 mineral veins, one was tens of thousands of feet long, and the other was tens of thousands of feet long. Zhuowen didn't hesitate to choose the 10,000 feet long vein. He said to Sequoia, "According to our agreement, I want this 10,000 feet long vein. You can go and take the 10,000 feet long vein." After saying that, Zhuowen pounced towards the 10,000 feet tall mineral vein without any further explanation. Although Sequoia was a little unwilling, they had already made an agreement. Moreover, time was of the essence, so she didn't say anything and went toward the 10,000 feet long vein. The dense Xian Wang Qi made Zhuowen feel relaxed and happy. He looked at Sequoia from the corner of his eyes and found that she wasn't paying attention to him. With a wave of his sleeve, a deep black hole appeared. The black hole had a terrifying suction force. The 10,000 feet long vein was instantly sucked into Zhuowen's body. On the other side, Sequoia summoned the array flag. Her hands formed a complicated seal, and a sealing force spread to the 10,000 feet long vein. She planned to seal the 10,000 feet long vein and put it into her spirit ring. After putting away the vein, Zhuowen suddenly noticed that there was a strange force emerging from the bottom of the mountain. Zhuowen was very familiar with this force. It was the star power of a planet. Does this Xian Wang vein lead to the deep underground of the Brahma Fiend's star? Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. There was no doubt that this Brahma Fiend's star had an owner. Normally, the star power of a planet with an owner couldn't be absorbed by a heavenly god. However, Zhuowen was different. His Devour clone had a powerful devouring ability. It could even devour a planet, let alone the star power of a planet with an owner. The reason why Devour needed to devour a planet was to devour the star power of the planet. However, the planet was just suffering from an unexpected disaster. Devouring a planet was an arrogant act, and it would be hard to avoid being discovered. After taking over Devour's body, Zhuowen had considered this situation. He was a human, not Devour. Normally, there would be mortals living in a planet with life. Thus, he couldn't devour a planet to obtain star power. If there was a way to obtain star power without devouring planets, it would definitely be the best of both worlds for Zhuowen. I don't need to devour a planet. If I go deep into the planet, I can use Devour's devouring power to devour a part of the star power of the planet. It won't affect the mortals on the planet, and my Devour clone won't be discovered. The more Zhuowen thought about it, the brighter his eyes became. Eventually, he punched the ground. Since this place led to the deep underground of the Brahmaphene star, he wanted to see if he could absorb the star power of this planet. Moreover, Zhuowen had a feeling that the Brahmaphene star wasn't simple. The star power of this planet was much more abundant than the other life planet. If he absorbed the star power of this planet, perhaps he could reach the peak of Heavenly God realm. Zhuowen controlled the thunder flame sword to go deeper into the ground. What are you doing? At this moment, Hong Shan had retrieved the 1000-zhang mineral vein. When she saw Zhuowen going deeper into the ground, she couldn't help but ask him in a low voice. Zhuowen turned around to look at Hong Shan and said in a low voice, "Miss Hong Shan, let's make a deal. Today, I have something to do in the depths of this place. You can leave on your own. However, before you leave, you have to erase the traces of me going deep into the ground. How about that? I know you want the fire spirit juice and the black-yellow mineral vein. I'll give you another 3000 zhang mineral vein and a barrel of fire spirit juice as a reward. How about that?" Hong Shan was bewildered. Inwardly, she was shocked by Zhuowen's wealth. After pondering for a while, she said, "I'll do this deal." Nodding, Zhuowen took out the 3000 zhang mineral vein and a barrel of fire spirit juice and gave them to Hong Shan. Then, he urged the thunder flame sword to go deeper. After a period of contact, Zhuowen could see that Hong Shan was a trustworthy person. She wouldn't take the things without doing anything. Of course, even if Hong Shan reneged on the deal, after Zhuowen advanced to the peak Heavenly God realm, he would directly barge into the Jianghong Trading Company and let Hong Shan suffer his wrath. After putting away the black-yellow mineral vein and fire spirit juice, Hong Shan looked at the figure going deep into the ground. After hesitating for a while, she finally took out the array flag and erased all traces of Zhuowen going deep into the ground. Hong Shan always felt that Zhuowen was very mysterious. Moreover, his strength was a little abnormally strong. After thinking for a long time, she finally decided not to provoke Zhuowen. After erasing all traces, Hong Shan left the back mountain. She took out a flying ship, a true god weapon, and quickly left Songren City. Not good. Someone touched the black-yellow mineral vein. Not long after Hong Shan left, Song Jiahao, who was originally searching for Zhuowen outside, was notified by the arcane god master of the Song family. He hurriedly returned to the Song family. Not long after Song Jiahao entered the back mountain, he came out again. However, his face was very ugly and even a little pale. The black-yellow mineral vein that the Song family controlled had been completely dug out. Not a single bit was left. This was the foundation of the Song family. It was silently taken away just like that. Chapter 1957. Peak Heavenly God Realm. The Thunder Fire Sword was extremely fast. In about half a day, it brought Zhuowen deep underground. What appeared in front of Zhuowen was an incomparably huge sea of lava. However, with his powerful spiritual sense, Zhuowen found a palm-sized crystal in the deepest part of the sea of lava. He knew that this was the star core. Zhuowen plunged into the sea of lava and rapidly approached the star core. After arriving a few hundred meters away from the star core, Zhuowen stopped. Dense stellar energy was being transmitted from the star core. The Brahmaphene star wasn't simple. Zhuowen didn't dare to take the star core. Once he did, the Brahmaphene star would be greatly affected. At that time, he would provoke public anger. Even the void sky experts hidden on this planet might come out. Zhuowen wouldn't do such a stupid thing. Zhuowen sat cross-legged a few hundred meters away from the star core. The heaven-devouring eye between his eyebrows slowly opened and began to devour the stellar energy emerging from the star core. Zhuowen's absorption speed was very slow and gentle. He was afraid that if he absorbed too quickly, he would be discovered by those void sky old monsters. In fact, when Zhuowen had entered the depths of the underground, He had already discovered that there was a spying formation here. Moreover, this formation wasn't weak. Therefore, he had been circulating the all-life formless at all times to prevent himself from being discovered by the spying formation. Time passed slowly. Zhuowen had stayed here for a year. The density of the stellar energy in the Brahma-fiend star's star core had exceeded Zhuowen's expectations. After absorbing for more than a year, he discovered that the stellar energy in the star core had only decreased by about 5%. Thinking of this, Zhuowen began to absorb the stellar energy without restraint. As for the spying formation in the depths of the underground, Zhuowen had already figured it out. Moreover, other than circulating the all-life formless, Zhuowen also had his main body observe the surrounding spying formation. His original body improved very quickly as he continued to learn. He actually managed to become a celestial saint master from a heavenly saint master. Of course, the main reason for this was because his original body had squandered the fire spirit essence to increase his comprehension ability. Now, even though the spying formation deep underground couldn't be broken yet, with the interference of the formless world and the devouring curse seal, it was difficult to detect Zhuowen's presence. This continued for another half a year. At this moment, Zhuowen was absorbing astral power without restraint. In just half a year, he had absorbed 20% of the astral power in the star core. A deep beastly roar came from Zhuowen's body, and an incomparably berserk aura erupted from Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen knew that Devour's clone had reached the peak of heavenly god realm. Opening his eyes, Zhuowen put away his original body and activated a formless existence to the extreme. Then, he suddenly drilled out of the magma ocean and plunged underground. Zhuowen's original body had reached the peak of demigod realm. However, as he had yet to refine a planet, he hadn't broken through to the heavenly god realm yet. If I refine one of the stars in Devour's body, will I be able to become a heavenly god realm expert? Zhuowen pondered. In the end, he decided to let his original body refine the star. The star in Devour's body had been refined by Devour, so it was much milder than ordinary stars. Even so, its temperature was still terrifying. Fortunately, his original body had cultivated the indestructible art of heaven and earth in the past 1.5 years. Relying on the heaven and earth mineral vein, his original body had cultivated the indestructible art of heaven and earth to the 3rd level, 1000 June. After all, his original body had a human body and was much smaller than Devour. Although he had cultivated the indestructible art of heaven and earth to the 3rd level, 1000 June, he hadn't used much heaven and earth energy. He had only used 1% of the indestructible art of heaven and earth. At this moment, the body of his original body was extremely terrifying. Although he was a demigod, he didn't suffer much damage when he got close to the star. After his original body sat on the star, Zhuowen used Devour's devouring power to surround his original body to prevent the terrifying energy from escaping from the star. Then, he let his original body refine the star. Songren City was especially lively today. Many cultivators stood on both sides of the street, looking up to see what was going on. At the end of the street, near the city gate of the Song family, 2 big crosses were erected. 2 women were tied to the crosses. One of the women was delicate and refined, and she was quite pleasing to the eye. The other woman attracted the attention of many cultivators. She was too beautiful. Her facial features were as delicate as a porcelain doll. People wanted to pinch her, but they were afraid that they would break her. Many guards of the Song family stood in front of the city gate. Song Jiahao, the head of the Song family, was sitting in an armchair. His cold eyes stared at the 2 tied women and asked, "Your god power is sealed. You're like mortals. You've been tied up here for 10 days and 10 nights. Can you endure it? If you don't want to suffer, tell us where that Zhuowen is." Xiao Tong pursed her lips and said coldly, "I'm sorry, but we don't know that Zhuowen. Even if you ask us a few times, we'll still give you the same answer. Yunchuyu's beautiful eyes were cold. She didn't say anything. After Zhuowen returned to the Song family, the two of them waited in a small town near Songren City for 3 months. When they found that Zhuowen didn't come looking for them, they returned to Fansha City. They planned to ask around about Zhuowen. Later, they found out that the lockdown of Fansha City had been cancelled. It was said that the Jianghong Trading Company's Hong Shan had returned. Yunchuyu and Xiao Tong naturally knew Hong Shan. They also knew that Hong Shan had been kidnapped by Zhuowen. When they found out that Hong Shan had returned to the Jianghong Trading Company, they knew that something might have happened to Zhuowen. However, when they found Hong Shan, they were told that Zhuowen was still in the Song family. As for what he was doing in the Song family, they didn't say. Therefore, the two women returned to the Song family and stayed in Songren City for a long time. However, there was still no news of Zhuowen. That was until 10 days ago when they were discovered by the subordinates of the Song family in Songren City. They were recognized and captured by the Song family and hung on the city gate. My patience is limited. Song Jiahao stretched out his right hand and condensed his divine power into a thick whip. He mercilessly swung it at Xiao Tong's body. But a mark appeared on Xiao Tong's clothes on her abdomen. Blood seeped out of her exposed skin. However, Xiao Tong was extremely stubborn. She endured the pain and didn't say a word. I love stubborn women the most. Song Jiahao laughed sinisterly. He swung his right hand again and again. In an instant, more than a dozen whip marks appeared on Xiao Tong's body. Even her clothes became messy. Song Jiahao, you're too presumptuous. We are disciples of the Crepe Myrtle sect. Aren't you afraid that the Crepe Myrtle sect will find trouble with you? Yunchuyu couldn't stand it anymore and couldn't help but scold him angrily. Song Jiahao laughed and swung his right hand at Yunchuyu. He laughed and said, Crepe Myrtle sect? If the Crepe Myrtle sect was still the powerful Crepe Myrtle sect of the past, I might be afraid. Unfortunately, the current Crepe Myrtle sect has been reduced to a second-grade galaxy. Even the life of their sect master is at stake. Why should I care about them? Song Jiahao's tone showed that he didn't care about the Crepe Myrtle sect at all. This caused Yunchuyu's beautiful eyes to fill with grief and indignation. She felt a little depressed. Just as Song Jiahao said, the glory of the Crepe Myrtle sect was long gone. They were in a precarious situation. Even the Song family didn't care about the Crepe Myrtle sect. Song Jiahao also saw the depression in Yunchuyu's eyes. His expression became even more smug. He swung his right hand and the whip was aimed at Yunchuyu's chest. Yunchuyu was indeed very beautiful. Especially after the depression in her eyes, there was a kind of delicate and pitiful charm to her. This made Song Jiahao feel an exuberant pleasure of abuse. A trace of lust even rose in his heart. Therefore, he did not hesitate to hit Yunchuyu's chest. Yunchuyu also saw Song Jiahao's intention. A trace of humiliation flashed in her beautiful eyes. She closed her beautiful eyes, intending to accept this humiliation. She knew very well that in her current state she could not resist. Even if she cursed, it would be useless. Therefore, she simply closed her eyes. However, the moment the whip formed from divine power reached her body, it collapsed with a loud bang. Rumble! The ground under Song Jiahao's feet shattered. A black shadow suddenly rushed out, and a flash of sword light quickly slashed toward him. The armchair that Song Jiahao was sitting on was shattered into pieces. Song Jiahao was also caught off guard. Divine power spewed out from his hands to meet the incoming flash of sword light. Swoosh! Unfortunately, this flash of sword light was too swift and fierce. The moment Song Jiahao came into contact with the flash of sword light, he was shattered into pieces. Then, a flash of golden light shot toward Song Jiahao's forehead at an extremely fast speed. Song Jiahao saw that this golden light was a thin needle. He was very familiar with this thin needle. It was the soul-absorbing divine needle that Zhuowen had released back then. "It's you." Zhuowen, Song Jiahao, had only just uttered these words when the golden light was extremely fast. It had already completely sunk into the space between his brows, completely shattering his spirit. Thump! Song Jiahao had only just uttered these words before he completely became a lifeless corpse. The moment he killed Song Jiahao, the black shadow stomped his right foot. The flash of sword light whistled. Yun Chuyu and Xiao Tong, who were originally tied to the cross, felt their bodies become light. Then, they were embraced by a large, gentle hand. "Don't struggle. I'll take you out of here." Just as the two women were about to struggle, they heard this low voice. They immediately recognized the owner of this voice. It was Zhuowen. The two women revealed a look of joy. However, the two women's beautiful faces quickly turned red. After all, they were carried by Zhuowen on both sides of their waist. Needless to say, that posture was extremely embarrassing. However, although the two women were embarrassed, they also knew that this was a special situation. Thus, they allowed Zhuowen to carry them. Zhuowen carried the two women and immediately spread the torch dragon wings. In an instant, they disappeared from Songren City. As soon as Zhuowen left, the entire Songren City was in chaos. This was because the head of the Song family, Song Jiahao, was dead. Moreover, he was instantly killed by a man who suddenly rushed out from the depths of the ground. This man's name was Zhuowen. Perhaps in the next period of time, Zhuowen's name would be known by everyone in Songren City. Everyone would know about him. In the depths of a dense forest, Zhuowen stopped and put the two women down. Then, his hands landed on the backs of the two women. With a surge of divine power, he released the shackles on the two women. After regaining their freedom, Xiao Tong and Yun Chuyu bowed to Zhuowen. However, the two women lowered their heads slightly. Their cheeks were bright red, and they did not dare to look at Zhuowen. Chapter 1958. Wu Han and Luo Pengfei Brother Zhuo, "We're just worried about you, so," Xiao Tong said submissively. Yun Chuyu's beautiful eyes were calm as she remained silent. Zhuowen nodded. Even if Xiao Tong did not say anything, Zhuowen knew that the two women had stayed because of him. "Let's go. Let's go to Brahma Fiend City and leave Brahma Fiend Planet through the teleportation array," Zhuowen said solemnly. Xiao Tong nodded meekly, but Yun Chuyu suddenly said, "Zhuowen, are you really at the peak of the heavenly god realm?" Zhuowen was startled and looked at Yun Chuyu in surprise. He nodded and said, "Yes, I am at the peak of the heavenly god realm. What's wrong?" Yun Chuyu bit her lower lip and looked at Zhuowen with a complicated expression. The scene of Zhuowen killing Song Jiahao with just a few moves was still vivid in her mind. Although she was also at the peak of the heavenly god realm, she could barely fight against an ordinary one-disaster true god. However, this young man in front of her had killed a three-disasters true god. This was too abnormal. Moreover, in the 1 year that she had spent in Song Renqing, Yun Chuyu had heard many things about Zhuowen. Back then, Zhuowen had not escaped from Song Yan's hands. Instead, after killing 4 true gods, including Song Yan, he had openly left right under Song Jiahao's nose. Thinking about Zhuowen's terrifying strength, Yun Chuyu could only feel her heart beating wildly. She knew that with Zhuowen's help, perhaps their crepe myrtle sect could really rise again. After all, Zhuowen was still so young and his realm was not very high. Can you join our crepe myrtle sect?" Yun Chuyu asked expectantly. Zhuowen glanced at Yun Chuyu. He knew what Yun Chuyu was thinking. He shook his head and said, "Sorry, I don't plan on joining any force. I only have one goal, and that is to go to Waning Crepe." Yun Chuyu's beautiful eyes focused, but she was not discouraged. She continued, "I heard junior sister Xiao say that you want to go to Waning Crepe for the sun moon grass, right? This thing is extremely rare. Even if you go in, you may not be able to find the sun moon grass. But in our crepe myrtle sect long ago, there was a heaven's pride that obtained a stalk of sun and moon grass in the waning moons, and there were records of the location where he obtained the sun and moon grass. Zhuowen's expression changed, then somewhat excitedly asked, "Your crepe myrtle sect has records of the location of the sun and moon grass." But soon, Zhuowen calmed down. He looked at Yunqiu and continued, "Let's change the conditions. I don't want to become a disciple of your crepe myrtle sect. There are too many restrictions, and I don't like it." Yunqiu gritted her teeth and said, "You can become a guest elder of our crepe myrtle sect. We will not restrict you. After some time, the great Brahma domain will hold a galactic tournament to determine the grade of the galaxy. The sect leader of our crepe myrtle sect is seriously injured, and it is impossible for him to recover before the galactic tournament. Moreover, in the past thousands of years, the crepe myrtle sect has not produced any outstanding genius. In order to maintain the status of a second-grade galaxy, I need your help." Zhuowen nodded. It seemed that Yunqiu had invited him to join the crepe myrtle sect because of this matter. It seemed that Yunqiu had thought that Zhuowen had the ability to kill true God 3 disasters, which was why she had invited him so strongly. Besides, Zhuowen really did need the records of the location of the sun and moon grass. After all, waning crepe myrtle sect was an unfamiliar place to him, and it was full of dangers. In addition, the sun and moon grass was extremely rare, and whether he could find it was still unknown. If there were records of the location of the sun and moon grass, his chances of obtaining the sun and moon grass would be greatly increased. It is said that in order to use the transmission array in the core star field of the Daphne domain, one must be a member of a force in the star field or a cultivator who has settled down in the star field. Is that true? Zhuowen asked again. That is true, but ultimately, it is because the disciples of the forces in the star field all have the corresponding transmission tokens. Back in the day, the crepe myrtle sect was also one of the 100 great sects in the star field, and the sect also had such transmission tokens, but there are not many left. If you can help the crepe myrtle sect this time, I am willing to give you the remaining transmission tokens in the crepe myrtle sect, Yunqiu said hurriedly. Hearing this, Zhuowen's gaze turned solemn. He nodded and agreed to Yunqiu's request. After all, he was a newcomer and did not know much about the Daphne domain. Although the crepe myrtle sect had declined, it was once one of the 100 great sects in the core star field of the Daphne domain, so it definitely knew more than him. Joining the crepe myrtle sect was not a bad thing. Moreover, he was only a guest elder and not a disciple of the crepe myrtle sect. He was not bound by the crepe myrtle sect, so he could still accept this. Seeing Zhuowen nod, Yunqiu smiled. Zhuowen could not help but be stunned. "Zhuowen, thank you. When I return to the crepe myrtle sect this time, I will report your matter to the sect leader. I think the sect leader will agree with my suggestion." Yunqiu also saw the stunned look in Zhuowen's eyes. She was very clear about her own charm. Generally, other male cultivators would be stunned when they saw her. She had long been used to such expressions. However, when Zhuowen looked stunned, she was secretly delighted. After all, Zhuowen was different from other ordinary cultivators. She had never seen a peak heavenly god who could kill an ordinary true god of 3 disasters. Even the monstrous geniuses of the 10 most powerful sects in the Daphne domain might not necessarily be able to do so. Since ancient times, beauties loved heroes. Yunqiu naturally did not think highly of ordinary cultivators, but in her heart, Zhuowen had already been classified as a monstrous genius of the 10 great sections. In addition, she had a good impression of Zhuowen. Naturally, she was secretly delighted that Zhuowen was stunned by her beauty. Zhuowen came back to his senses and nodded. Let's return to Brahma Fiend City first. Although Yunqiu was beautiful, Zhuowen was only stunned and admiring her. He did not have any improper thoughts. After all, his heart was not here. As he spoke, Zhuowen led Yunqiu and Xiao Tong away from this place. After entering Brahma Fiend City, Zhuowen's group of 3 walked straight to the teleportation array. However, they met an uninvited guest at the teleportation array. Hong Shan. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and stared coldly at the red-robed lady standing beside the teleportation array. However, Zhuowen's main attention was focused on the green-robed elder beside Hong Shan. This elder was about 70 years old. He was full of energy and his face was glowing. The aura on his body was as vast as the sea. This person was definitely a void sky expert. The owner of the Jiang Hong Trading Company, Wu Han. Yun Chuyu said with a pale face. Xiao Tong's expression was also extremely ugly. They did not expect that the void sky expert of the Jiang Hong Trading Company, Wu Han, would come. This time, they would not be able to leave. Hong Shan chuckled and slowly walked in front of Zhuowen. She sized up Zhuowen and said, "Little man, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Don't you want to say goodbye to me before you leave?" Zhuowen said coldly, "Miss Hong Shan, we don't seem to be that close, right? Moreover, I have given you a lot of fire spirit juice and black yellow or vein. I think we don't owe each other anything." Seeing Zhuowen's cold attitude, Hong Shan's beautiful eyes froze, and her heart felt empty. She then looked at Yun Qiu and Xiao Tong, who were standing beside Zhuowen, and said with a smile, "Now that I have two beauties by my side," this little man, Hong Shan, wanted to continue but was immediately interrupted by Zhuowen. "What do you want to say? Just say it. I am in a hurry." Hong Shan's delicate body trembled and her beautiful eyes reddened. She said angrily, "You don't want to talk to me?" As she spoke, Hong Shan walked to the old man's side in a fit of pique and ignored Zhuowen. Wu Han glanced at Hong Shan and shook his head helplessly. This was the first time he saw Hong Shan in such a sorry state in front of a man. "You are Zhuowen, right? As for the matter of you kidnapping my granddaughter, I will not hold it against you. This time, I am here on behalf of the Jiang Hong Trading Company to invite you to join our company. As long as you join our Jiang Hong Trading Company, you will immediately receive the treatment of an elder," Wu Han said with a smile. Zhuowen was startled. Just as he was about to refuse, loud laughter suddenly rang out. A group of people walked over from behind Zhuowen. The leader of the group was a robust middle-aged man. Zhuowen was familiar with the black-clothed man beside the middle-aged man. He was the leader of the group that led the convoy out of Fan Sha City. "Wu Han, you are really unkind. You actually secretly recruited people behind my back." The middle-aged man walked with a majestic gait and came in front of Zhuowen. He looked at Zhuowen with a burning gaze. "Luo Pengfei, what do you mean by coming uninvited?" Wu Han snorted coldly. Zhuowen sized up the middle-aged man in front of him. The moment he saw the black-clothed man, he had already guessed the middle-aged man's identity. He was the owner of the Dazzling Light Trading Company, Luo Pengfei. "Not bad. It seems like your cultivation has improved since a year ago." "Zhuowen, I am the owner of the Dazzling Light Trading Company, Luo Pengfei. I wonder if you are willing to join our Dazzling Light Trading Company? In order to express my sincerity, these things will be our meeting gift for joining our trading company." As he spoke, Luo Pengfei took out a storage bag and handed it to Zhuowen. Zhuowen casually looked through it and realized that there was a total of 50 million godstones, a stock of level 6 divine medicine, a dozen stocks of level 5 divine medicine, and an upper-grade true god weapon level divine sword. Wu Han's divine sense was extremely powerful. The instant Zhuowen opened the storage pouch, he also noticed the contents of the storage pouch. He cursed in his heart and hurriedly took out the storage pouch he had prepared beforehand. He smiled and said, "Zhuowen, in order to express our Jiang Hong trading firm's sincerity, this is a welcome gift for joining our Jiang Hong trading firm." Zhuowen took Wu Han's storage bag and discovered that there were actually 80 million divine stones inside. Not only that, there were 2 stocks of level 6 divine herbs, 20 stocks of level 5 divine herbs, and 2 high-grade true god level divine sword. Regardless of whether it was Wu Han or Luo Pengfei, the meeting gifts that the two of them gave were extremely valuable. Even an ordinary true god 3 disasters might not be able to take out so many things as a gift. However, the two of them were void sky experts and owners of trading companies. Naturally, they were rich and overbearing. They didn't feel the pinch at all. Regardless of whether it was Wu Han or Luo Pengfei, they knew from Hong Shan and the black-clothed man that Zhuowen had injured the Song family head, Song Jiahao, a year ago when he was in the late heaven god stage. They immediately realized how monstrous Zhuowen was. They definitely had to rope in such a genius. In the future, it would be extremely beneficial for the trading company's development. Chapter 1959. Crepe Myrtle sect. Whether it was Wu Han or Luo Pengfei, their understanding of Zhuowen's battle prowess was the same as it was a year and a half ago. If they knew that Zhuowen had killed Song Jiahao not long ago, what kind of expression would they have? Zhuowen didn't care much about divine stones. He had a pool of fire spirit juice on him, and its value was immeasurable. If he lacked divine stones, he only needed to sell some of the fire spirit juice to get a large amount of divine stones. As for divine herbs, Zhuowen didn't lack them either. The Qiyun celestial soil was very effective. Zhuowen already had 2 withered level 7 divine herbs that had been revived. A mere level 6 divine herb wasn't enough to catch his eye. As for a true god artifact, there was no need to talk about it. Zhuowen could totally use divine stones to purchase it. To him, it did not have much attraction at all. However, Wu Han and Luo Pengfei were void sky experts, so Zhuowen couldn't not give them any face. He thought for a while, then cupped his hands at the two of them. Seniors, I'm undisciplined by nature and don't want to be tied down. So, please take back these 2 items. After putting away the storage pouches, Wu Han and Luo Pengfei frowned. They didn't expect Zhuowen and Luo Pengfei to reject them. Haha, since you don't want to, I won't force you. After saying that, Wu Han brought Hong Shan out of the teleportation formation in a very straightforward manner. Luo Pengfei glanced at Zhuowen indifferently, then also left the transportation array as if nothing had happened. Zhuowen frowned, but didn't think too much about it. He said to Xiao Tong and Yunshuyu, "Let's go." After handing over a certain amount of divine stones, the 3 of them stepped into the transportation array. This transportation array was controlled by the Arcana Masters guarding the array. Moreover, the fee was based on the distance. The Ziwei Galaxy was quite far from the Brahma Fiend star, but it cost Zhuowen 10,000 divine stones. When Zhuowen opened his eyes, he found that what appeared in front of him was a pitch-black starry sky. This starry sky was incomparably dark, and there were not many stars in the surroundings. It was dark and cold. This is the Emperor star system? Zhuowen looked around and found that there was no star system around. Oh no, this isn't the Ziwei Galaxy. It's still the Borderlands. Yunshuyu pointed at a dot of light in the distance. That dot of light was the Brahma Fiend star. Zhuowen's heart trembled, and he immediately summoned Yunshuyu and Xiao Tong into his spirit ring. Then, he unfurled his torch dragon wings and turned into a purple shadow that flew into the distant starry sky. Not long after Zhuowen disappeared, a terrifying hand suddenly smashed down, and the space where Zhuowen was just moments ago instantly distorted and collapsed. Looking at the terrifying hand behind him, Zhuowen's expression became extremely unsightly. This power was definitely not the power of a true god but the power of a void god. Zhuowen immediately understood the reason. It was likely that the teleportation array was not faulty. Instead, someone had tampered with the teleportation array. Only Wu Han of the Jianghong trading firm and Luo Pengfei of the Dazzling Light trading firm were capable of tampering with the teleportation array. Bang! The moment the hand behind him grabbed out, the starry sky above Zhuowen's head split open, and another terrifying hand grabbed out. The aura of this hand was completely different from the aura of the first hand. It was obviously not the same person. At this moment, Zhuowen's heart sank. He was afraid that he had encountered the worst possible situation. Luo Pengfei and Wu Han were very likely to join forces to deal with him. Two great void sky experts had actually joined forces to deal with a junior like him. Zhuowen was a little angry in his heart. He knew that it was very likely that Hong Shan had said something to Wu Han that made Wu Han suspect that he still had a lot of fire spirit juice on him. The fire spirit juice had the effect of temporarily increasing one's comprehension ability, and it was also extremely attractive to void sky experts. Even a void sky expert would not be able to resist a pool of fire spirit juice. These two old men and that bitch Hong Shan. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with fire. He stretched his torch dragon wings to the extreme, and at the same time, he added the power of Dao intent to the torch dragon wings. After receiving the power of Dao intent, the torch dragon shadow on the wings seemed to have been injected with stimulants, and its speed suddenly increased by a lot. Bang! Zhuowen narrowly escaped the pursuit of the big hand, but the strong wind formed by the big hand streaking across the starry sky heavily bombarded his chest, causing him to feel as if he had been electrocuted. He felt a sweet taste in his throat, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He actually dodged it? A surprised voice came from the void, and then the two big hands swept over together and chased after Zhuowen. Left with no other choice, Zhuowen unleashed his fifth-level Dao intent. A dense purple Dao intent circled around his body before finally condensing on the wings behind his back, dyeing the torch dragon wings purple. Zhuowen's speed suddenly increased by 5 times, and the two big hands that were originally close to Zhuowen were actually shaken off by him. This kid really has a secret. He can actually refine the remnant wings of the torch dragon to this extent. Also, what kind of power is this purple intent? I have never seen this purple intent power in the Great Brahma domain. Another voice came from the starry sky, but it was full of greed. Although Zhuowen used the 5th-level Dao intent and increased his speed to the extreme, the two divine senses that swept over from the starry sky firmly locked onto him. If he didn't get rid of these two divine senses, Zhuowen wouldn't be able to escape. Thinking of this, Zhuowen immediately released the soul-assimilating divine needle. The divine senses that were originally locked onto Zhuowen were all swallowed by the soul-assimilating divine needle. However, Zhuowen also knew the strength of the two great void sky experts, so he didn't let the soul-assimilating divine needle follow the divine senses to stab towards the owner of the divine senses. Instead, he controlled the soul-assimilating divine needle to absorb all the divine senses that surrounded him. What? Is this divine needle refined from the glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand? It actually swallowed the divine senses? At this moment, the voice in the starry sky came again, but the voice was extremely surprised. After the divine senses were completely swallowed by the soul-assimilating divine needle, Zhuowen instantly disappeared on the spot like a purple shadow. Zhuowen practically constantly urged the torch dragon wings, and he didn't dare to stop at all. After flying for about another half a month, he realized that he had completely shaken off the two void sky experts, and only then did he heave a sigh of relief. Wu Han Luo Pengfei, since you've completely fallen out with me, don't blame me, Zhuowen, for returning to your Brahma star in the future. Zhuowen muttered in a low voice, and then he found Yunchuyu and Xiao Tong. Big brother Zhuo, did we successfully escape? Xiao Tong asked. Zhuowen nodded, and then he looked around. He noticed that the surroundings were still pitch black, and he said helplessly, although we've shaken off Luo Pengfei and Wu Han, I think I'm lost. Yunchuyu looked around, then took out a jade slip, opened it, and said, we should be here. Although we're still in the borderlands, we're not far from the border. However, how are you so fast? It's only been half a month, and you've already arrived at the border? The borderlands around the Brahma star were extremely wide, and it would take more than 10 years to leave the border with a star disk. However, Zhuowen had arrived in just half a month, so it was no wonder that Yunchuyu was so surprised. Zhuowen smiled embarrassedly, then casually made up a story about him having a spaceship at the level of a true god weapon. Yunqiu tactfully didn't ask any more questions. The closest place to here should be the Hard Galaxy. It's a first-grade galaxy, and there's also a teleportation array inside. After we enter this galaxy, we should be able to teleport back to the Emperor's star, Yunqiu said calmly. Zhuowen didn't waste any time. He summoned the Flame Beast and brought the three of them to the Hard Galaxy on the star map. 2 months later, the Flame Beast entered the Hard Galaxy as scheduled. The moment the Flame Beast entered the Hard Galaxy, it attracted the attention of Hard Galaxy's ruler, Harg. After learning that Zhuowen and the other two were disciples of the Crepe Myrtle sect, Harg was extremely enthusiastic. He even waived the cost of using the teleportation array. The white light of the teleportation array faded, and Zhuowen opened his eyes once again. He found that what appeared before him was a huge continent with countless buildings standing tall on it. Around the continent were countless stars twinkling. It was obvious that this continent was located in the center of the galaxy. Brother Zhua, this continent is the Crepe Myrtle sect, and this galaxy is the Emperor's star system. Returning to her old home, Xiao Tong was in a good mood. Her beautiful eyes curved into crescents, and even Yunqiu couldn't help but smile. Senior Sister Yun, Senior Sister Xiao, you're finally back. A woman with a bit of baby fat stood outside the teleportation array, looking at Xiao Tong and Yunqiu in surprise. Huai Tong, how's the sect leader? Yunqiu smiled as she looked at the chubby woman in front of her. Unexpectedly, the woman's eyes immediately turned red. She sobbed and said, "The Great Elder and the others said that the sect leader is about to die. They also said that the sect leader's promotion ceremony will be held in a few days." What? Did the Great Elder say that? Or did the other elders agree? And who was promoted to sect leader? Yunqiu's pretty face changed slightly. The other 3 elders agreed as well. The one who was promoted to sect leader this time is the Great Elder's son, Zhao Yang. Huai Tong stammered. Outrageous! The sect leader isn't dead yet, and this Zhao Yin is too presumptuous. He actually dares to openly hold a sect leader's promotion ceremony. Does he not respect the sect leader at all? No, I have to go see the sect leader. As she spoke, Yunqiu hurriedly left the place. Senior sister, don't go. The sect leader's hall has already been sealed off by the Great Elder. He said that the sect leader only wants peace and quiet, and no one is allowed to disturb him. Otherwise, he will be punished according to the sect rules, Huai Tong hurriedly said. Big Brother Zhua, that first elder has always coveted our sect master's position. However, our sect master didn't do anything to the first elder on account of the fact that he's a veteran of 2 generations and is close to the previous sect master. This time, the sect leader was seriously injured outside due to an accident, and now the Great Elder wants to mess around. The sect leader is only seriously injured and not dead, and the Great Elder wants to promote a new sect leader. He's basically treating our sect leader like a dead person. Senior Sister Yun won't be able to gain anything by going to the sect leader's hall this time. Let's go together. Chapter 1960. Sect leader of the Crepe Myrtle sect. Zhuowen nodded. Even if Xiao Tong did not mention it, Zhuowen had already planned to meet the sect leader of the Crepe Myrtle sect. He had heard from Yunqiu that the ancient records and books of the Crepe Myrtle sect were all in the hands of the sect leader of the Crepe Myrtle sect. Therefore, if he wanted the specific records of the sun and moon herb that Yunqiu had mentioned, he had to find the sect leader of the Crepe Myrtle sect. Zhuowen and Xiao Tong followed behind Yunqiu. However, Zhuowen noticed that although many Crepe Myrtle sect disciples passed by along the way, none of them greeted Yunqiu. In fact, some of them even avoided her gaze. Yunqiu's expression was extremely gloomy. She had also noticed that something was wrong with the disciples around her. She did not need to think to know that the strange expressions of these disciples were definitely because of the Great Elder. Along the way, when Yunqiu arrived in front of the sect leader's hall, a graceful young man blocked her path. This young man was extremely handsome, the kind that could easily make budding girls infatuated with him. Beside the young man stood two old men with indifferent expressions. The two old men glanced at Yunchuyu indifferently. They had no intention of greeting her at all. Zhuowen stood behind Yunchuyu and sized up the three people in front of him. The young man's cultivation was the same as Yunchuyu's, at the peak of the heavenly god realm. As for the two old men beside him, they were both first disaster true gods. "Isn't this our great senior sister? You've been out for so long. Did you get the ice flame profound yellow Ganoderma?" The young man sized up Yunchuyu, his gaze extremely impudent. "Zhao Yang, you're too impudent. Senior sister Yun is your senior sister. How dare you be so impudent and block our path?" Xiao Tong said coldly. Zhao Yang looked at Xiao Tong indifferently and said coldly, "Did I speak to you?" Then, he looked at Yunchuyu and continued, "What? Great senior sister, did you not complete the task given to you by the sect leader? You should know that the sect leader gave you 30 million divine stones. If you did not get the ice flame profound yellow Ganoderma, then hand over the 30 million divine stones." Yunchuyu's beautiful eyes were cold as she said coldly, "I've already bought the ice flame profound yellow Ganoderma, but why should I give it to you? Are you qualified to take away the ice flame profound yellow Ganoderma?" Zhao Yang didn't take it seriously and said lightly, 3 days later, the sect master replacement ceremony will be held. At that time, I will be the new sect master. Do you think I am qualified?" Yunchuyu said coldly, "Without the agreement of the sect leader, what right do you have to ask for the ice flame mysterious yellow Ganoderma?" Zhao Yang's eyes turned cold. He said, "Elder Qing, how should we deal with those who offend their superiors?" One of the white-robed elders sneered, "Capture him and lock him up in the dungeon to reflect on his mistakes." Yunchuyu's pretty face was pale with anger. She pointed at Zhao Yang and said, "Zhao Yang, you're too presumptuous. You're not the sect leader yet. The one who offended you is you, not me." Zhao Yang didn't care at all and said, "What? It's only a matter of time before I become the sect master. Why are you so dissatisfied? Could it be that you covet the position of sect master?" "Zhao Yang, unless you let us see the sect master, if the sect master personally agrees to let you succeed as the new sect master, then I have no objections. However, if you're lying, don't blame me for being rude." Yunchuyu had calmed down at this moment. Zhao Yang shook his head and said, "Eldest senior sister, the sect master is too tired right now. She doesn't want to see anyone yet. She needs the ice flame mysterious yellow Ganoderma. Hand it over first. When the sect master isn't tired anymore, I will hand it over to her." Yunchuyu ignored Zhao Yang and walked straight toward the sect master's palace. "Since eldest senior sister has no regard for the law, then don't blame me for being rude. Elder Qing, take her." Zhao Yang gave the white-robed elder a look. The latter nodded and immediately formed a claw with his right hand, grabbing at Yunchuyu. Terrifying star god power surged out, forming an invisible giant claw that enveloped Yunchuyu's entire body. Zhuowen stood silently at the back. He wanted to see Yunchuyu's strength. Elder Qing was not very strong, and he did not have the aura of thunder disaster on him. His strength was very ordinary. He wanted to see how strong Yunchuyu was. Yunchuyu stood quietly, not afraid of the white-robed elder's attack at all. Her jade-like hand formed a palm, and she pushed it upward. The palm of her hand became a gust of wind that slammed into the white-robed elder's claw. A sound like muffled thunder rang out. Yunchuyu's legs tensed up, and she did not move from her spot. The white-robed elder let out a muffled groan and retreated dozens of steps. His wrinkled face was slightly gloomy. "Elder you go as well. Yunchuyu is too presumptuous. Not only did she offend her superiors, but she even attacked a fellow disciple. She is truly despicable," Zhao Yang hurriedly said. The black-robed elder standing on the other side nodded and turned into a black shadow, attacking Yunchuyu from behind. The white-robed elder who had retreated was like a whirlwind, sweeping toward Yun Chuyu from the front, forming a pincer attack with the black-robed elder. Despicable! Xiao Tong's pretty face was flushed red, and her beautiful eyes were filled with anger. Just as she was about to pounce forward, she was stopped by Zhuowen. Big brother Zhuowen, you! Xiao Tong looked at Zhuowen in confusion. Zhuowen smiled and said, Your eldest senior sister is not weak. 2 pieces of trash can't do anything to her. Zhuowen's voice was not soft, so it was naturally heard by the black-robed elder and the white-robed elder who were attacking Yun Chuyu from both sides. When they heard Zhuowen call them trash, the 2 elders' eyes were filled with rage. They were so angry that their bodies trembled, and their bodies revealed openings. Yun Chuyu's beautiful eyes flashed, and she immediately grasped the openings that the 2 elders revealed due to their rage. Yun Chuyu's jade-like foot kicked off the ground, and her slender waist spun out like a propeller. Her hands formed palms and she waved them out. The powerful star god energy was like an invisible ripple that blasted the 2 elders' openings. Bang! Bang! 2 muffled groans were heard, and the expressions of the 2 elders changed slightly. They were sent flying and they crashed to the ground in a sorry state. Yun Chuyu looked at Zhuowen. She was a smart woman, and she knew that Zhuowen had purposely made a sound just now to distract the 2 elders. Let's go in. We don't need to pay attention to this piece of trash, Zhuowen said calmly and walked towards the sect leader's hall. Earlier, he had used the shapeless all-life to temporarily confuse the 2 elders. Otherwise, Yun Chuyu would not have been able to defeat the 2 elders so easily when she was fighting against 2 of them alone. Zhuowen opened his mouth, but he did not dare to refute. The 2 elders had been severely injured by Yun Chuyu, and he was definitely no match for Yun Chuyu. Even if he was angry at Zhuowen for calling him trash, he could only silently endure it. Yun Chuyu giggled, and her beautiful eyes stared at Zhuowen's figure. For the first time, she felt that the cold young man in front of her had a humorous side. There's a restriction. When they approached the door of the sect leader's palace, Zhuowen reached out to stop Xiao Tong and Yun Chuyu. Brother Zhuo, this is a restriction set up by the sect leader. It's to prevent any villains in the sect from doing anything harmful to the sect leader while he's injured, Xiao Tong said, deliberately looking at Zhao Yang, who was not far away, with an ugly expression. Yun Chuyu stepped forward and formed a seal with both hands. The restriction that originally covered the door slowly opened, and a gap the height of a person appeared. She pushed open the door and stepped into the sect leader's palace. Zhuowen and Xiao Tong followed closely behind. When the 3 of them entered the sect leader's palace, the restriction returned to its original state. Humph. So the method of restriction was really given to Yun Chuyu? It looks like the sect leader doesn't trust us, Zhao Yang muttered softly with a frown. However, I have my own ways to ruin your reputation. After saying this, Zhao Yang's eyes were cold, and he immediately left with the 2 elders. Inside the sect leader's palace, it was not an ordinary hall. Instead, it was a world of ice and snow. Dense cold air rolled in, and even Zhuowen felt a chill. It was a cold that penetrated deep into his bones. In the middle of the hall there was a huge ice pool. 8 huge ice walls stood around the ice pool. Chuyu, you're back? From within the ice pool came a woman's aged voice. Zhuowen did not recklessly extend his divine sense to investigate. Instead, he raised his head and looked at the ice pool. Between the gaps of the ice walls, he saw a beautiful figure faintly discernible in the ice pool. This figure wore an ice-blue veil and sat on the ice pool with her back facing them. Yun Chuyu and Xiao Tong both bowed respectfully and said, "Greetings, sect leader." The figure remained motionless, sitting on the ice pool like an ice sculpture. At the same time, Yun Chuyu took out the frost flame mysterious yellow Ganoderma from her spirit ring and placed it outside the ice wall. Sect leader, Chuyu did not disappoint you and brought the frost flame mysterious yellow Ganoderma. The frost flame mysterious yellow Ganoderma slowly melted into the ice wall, then rose from the bottom of the ice pool and landed beside the figure. Zhuowen looked at the figure in confusion. He found that the figure had not moved from the beginning to the end, as if she had become one with the ice pool. "Who is this person?" the Crepe Myrtle sect leader asked. Yunqiu said respectfully, "Sect leader, his name is Zhuowen. This time, it was all thanks to him that junior sister Xiao and I were able to escape from the Brahma Fiend Star." Then, Yunqiu briefly explained the matter of the Brahma Fiend Star. The Crepe Myrtle sect leader was silent for a while, then a terrifying murderous intent surged out from him. This murderous intent made even Zhuowen shiver. He was sure that the Crepe Myrtle sect leader was not simple. Zhuowen had cultivated for so many years, but this was the first time he had encountered such a powerful murderous intent. "You are Zhuowen, right? Thank you for saving Qiu and Xiao Tong. If it weren't for you, not only would they not have been able to obtain the Frost Flame mysterious yellow Ganoderma, they would have even lost their lives." Speaking of this, Zhuowen found that the ice wall in front of him began to squirm, and then a black or the size of a washbasin appeared. There was a hint of purple on the surface of this ore, and it gently flickered. "This is the glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand?" Zhuowen looked at the washbasin-sized ore, his pupils shrinking into needles. He could not help but be shocked. He knew very well how valuable this thing was. After his soul-absorbing divine needle was mixed with the thumb-sized glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand, its power had greatly increased. But now, what appeared in front of him was a washbasin-sized glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand. Zhuowen had never seen such a huge glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand before. Its value was simply inestimable. "This is too valuable," Zhuowen said with a serious expression. Chapter 1961. Extreme True Divinity. Zhuowen, there's no need to be so polite. The disciples of the Crepe Myrtle sect are not so worthless, and Qiu is my niece. My bloodline is not something this glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand can compare to, and this glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand will be of great use to you. Yin Bingyun's aged voice rang out once again, and Zhuowen took another look at Yunqiu. No wonder Yunqiu was so concerned about Yin Bingyun, the two of them were related by blood. "Big brother Zhua, this is the sect master's sincerity, please accept it." Yunqiu bowed to Zhuowen. Zhuowen had helped her a lot, and now she was addressing him as Big Brother Zhuowen. It was clear that Yunqiu was grateful to him. Seeing that it was difficult to refuse such kindness, Zhuowen nodded and put away the glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand. With this glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand, Zhuowen could not only refine the soul-assimilating divine needle again, but he could also use the extra glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand to refine a divine sword that was suitable for him. However, Zhuowen was a little surprised by how Yunqiu addressed Yin Bingyun. Since she was Yin Bingyun's niece, why did she only address her as sect master? This form of address felt a little distant. "Sect master, what's going on? How can the great elder be so presumptuous? You're still in seclusion and haven't died, but the great elder is planning to hold a ceremony for the new sect master. He's completely looking down on you," Xiao Tong said somewhat angrily. "Let them be. Zhao Yin is the previous sect master's younger brother, and I'm the previous sect master's direct disciple. If it weren't for the previous sect master's will, I wouldn't want to be the sect master of the Crepe Myrtle sect. I promised the previous sect master that I would bring the Crepe Myrtle sect to greater heights, but I didn't expect that the Crepe Myrtle sect would decline even further in my hands. Moreover, I've been eroded by the ice of the illusory Rift Valley, and even the ice flame heaven yellow Ganoderma can only slightly delay my pain. Zhao Yin was right about one thing, I don't have much time left," Yin Bingyun said bitterly. "Auntie, you'll be fine. You are my only family in this world, please don't." Yunqiu, who had been calm all this while, suddenly burst into tears. Her voice trembled as she looked at Yin Bingyun's back. Xiao Tong squatted beside Yunqiu and gently patted her back. She knew the struggle in Yunchuyu's heart the best. Yunchuyu looked strong and cold on the surface, but it was actually a forced cover. Yin Bingyun's stiff voice suddenly trembled. She wanted to turn around, but the freezing power of the ice pond was too terrifying. She couldn't move at all. Chuyu, I really didn't expect you to call me aunt while I'm still alive. I'm already very happy. I'm really sorry. I could only save you, but I couldn't save your father. I'm really useless. Yin Bingyun's voice trembled. Yunchiyu's eyes were brimming with tears as she said, I've never blamed you. I only blame myself for being too useless and implicating my father. Aunt, you've already done your best. If it weren't for you, how could you have ended up like this? I swore that I would personally go to the core star field of the great Brahma domain and kill Lei Qi to avenge my father. Yin Bingyun hurriedly said, Child, don't do anything stupid. Lei Qi was already a famous genius in the great Brahma domain several thousand years ago. After several thousand years, he has already reached the void sky realm. Coupled with the strength of the Dark Mirage sect, his strength will only grow stronger. Don't do anything stupid. Yunchiyu stubbornly shook her head and said, Aunt, don't worry. If I don't enter the void sky realm, I won't go look for Lei Qi without permission. I won't seek my own death. Yin Bingyun knew Yunchiyu's personality and could only sigh softly, not saying anything else. Chuyu, Xiaotong, you two go to the side hall first. I have some things to say to this brother Zhuowen, Yin Bingyun suddenly said. Yunchuyu and Xiaotong looked at each other and nodded. Then, they entered the side hall on the other side. Zhuowen, can you come to my side? It's not convenient for me to turn around right now. Yin Bingyun said. Zhuowen's eyes flickered and he took a step forward. The moment he entered the ice wall, a bone-chilling coldness drilled into his body. Zhuowen frowned, but he didn't care too much about it. He entered the ice wall. His physical body wasn't the physical body of an ordinary cultivator, but Devour's. Although the illusory Rift Valley ice was powerful, it couldn't threaten Devour's physical body. Yin Bingyun's consciousness naturally noticed Zhuowen, whose expression was normal. Her beautiful eyes revealed astonishment. She knew how powerful the illusory Rift Valley ice was. Even if an ordinary true god of 3 disasters stepped into the ice wall, it was impossible for him to be as calm as Zhuowen. The reason she let Zhuowen in was to test Zhuowen's strength. After all, Zhuowen's aura was too weak. He was only at the peak of the heavenly god realm. How could she believe that Zhuowen had really killed true god of 3 disasters? The current scene made Yin Bingyun believe Yunchuyu's words a little. Sect Master Yin, are you satisfied? Zhuowen stood behind Yin Bingyun and asked calmly. Yin Bingyun naturally knew what Zhuowen meant. She curled her cherry lips and said with a smile, Zhuowen, please don't mind me. I just wanted to test you. I don't have any ill intentions towards you. I know. That's why I didn't attack. Zhuowen nodded. Yin Bingyun, who was in front of him, gave Zhuowen a strange feeling. Her aura was clearly only that of a 2 disasters real god, but Zhuowen actually felt a sense of danger from her. This sense of danger was much stronger than that of Song Jiahao, who was a 3 disasters real god. You must be very confused. I'm only a true god of 2 disasters. Why would I give you such a strong sense of danger? Yin Bingyun was like a worm in Zhuowen's stomach and said with a smile. Zhuowen was silent. Yin Bingyun continued, It's because I've been a true god of 2 disasters for 9,900 years. I've experienced 19 fires. I'm only 100 years away from the 20th fire. Zhuowen's eyes shrunk and he looked at Yin Bingyun in disbelief. He did not expect Yin Bingyun to be a true god of 2 disasters for so long. No wonder she gave him such a strong sense of danger. Yin Bingyun was not an ordinary true god of 2 disasters. At the same time, Zhuowen recalled when Tai Ching had introduced Yu Qing. He had said that Yu Qing had been a true god of 1 disaster for 10,000 years and had experienced 20 lightning disasters. After experiencing 20 lightning disasters, Yu Qing, who was only a true god of one disaster, had killed true god of 3 disasters in one move. Back then, Zhuowen did not have a clear understanding of the realms. Now that he was a peak heaven god, he naturally had a deeper understanding of the realms of a real god. He knew that the calamities of a true god would be more terrifying each time. Even 10 calamities were already rare enough, let alone 20. However, Yin Bingyun was able to experience 19 fires. It could be seen how terrifying Yin Bingyun's abilities were. No wonder Yin Bingyun gave him such a strong sense of danger. Sect Master Yin, you're going to experience the 20th fire in 100 years? Zhuowen suddenly thought of something and asked. Yin Bingyun smiled sadly and nodded. Yes, but it's also the arrival of my death. Speaking of this, Yin Bingyun spoke again. Zhuowen, do you know the legend of Extreme Wei Real God? Extreme Wei Real God? Zhuowen shook his head. It was his first time hearing about Extreme Wei Real God. There are 3 types of Extreme Wei Real God. They are Real God Extreme Thunder, Real God Extreme Fire, and Real God Extreme Wind. Legend has it that Extreme Wei Real God is extremely powerful. They are terrifying real gods who can really compete with Void Sky experts. However, there is a drawback to Extreme Wei Real God. Once one becomes an Extreme Wei Real God, it becomes extremely difficult to advance to Void Sky. In other words, Extreme Wei Real God is too powerful. The universe rules will reject the Extreme Wei Real God's Void Sky bridge. The condition to become an Extreme Wei Real God is to stay in a realm of Real God for 10,000 years and experience 20 disasters. For example, if you experience 20 thunder disasters at the 1 disaster Real God stage, you will become Real God Extreme Thunder. Correspondingly, Real God 2 disasters and Real God 3 disasters will correspond to Real God Extreme Fire and Real God Extreme Wind. Zhuowen was suddenly enlightened. So this was the so-called Extreme Tao Real God. Back then, Yu Qing should have been Extreme Thunder Real God. However, Yu Qing eventually became a Void Sky Real God. It seemed that Extreme Tao Real Gods could also become a Void Sky Real God, but the difficulty was higher. Sect Master Yin, do you feel that you won't be able to survive the 20th fire? Zhuowen asked. Yin Bingyun smiled sadly. No. Regardless of whether I can become Real God Extreme Fire or not, after 100 years, I won't be able to escape the fate of dying. Zhuowen asked in surprise, what do you mean by that? Do you know where the illusory Rift Valley ice on my body came from? Yin Bingyun changed the topic and asked. Although Zhuowen was confused by Yin Bingyun's words, he still answered, Miss Yun, did you say that the illusory Rift Valley ice was cast by a cultivator called Lei Qi from the Serene Fantasy sect? Yes. The Serene Fantasy sect is one of the top 10 sects in the core star region of the Great Brahma domain. It is a giant existence in the entire Great Brahma domain. Lei Qi is a genius from the Serene Fantasy sect and his background is extremely strong. Yin Bingyun continued, the illusory Rift Valley ice was cast on my body by Lei Qi on purpose and he let me return to the Crate Myrtle sect on purpose. Originally, I didn't understand Lei Qi's intention. However, as thousands of years passed, I realized that my cultivation had been stuck at Real God 2 disasters. Even if I had accumulated enough, I wouldn't be able to advance to Real God 3 disasters. Moreover, due to the illusory Rift Valley ice, every time there was a fire, the ice would help me to pass through the calamity. As such, I was able to pass through each fire safely, all the way until the 19th fire. Zhuowen became silent. He had already guessed that Yin Bingyun wasn't willing to take the path of an Extreme Wei Real God. Instead, it was done by Lei Qi on purpose. The reason why Yin Bingyun's cultivation couldn't advance was because of the illusory Rift Valley ice. On top of that, the illusory Rift Valley ice could help Yin Bingyun pass through the fire. The matter was very clear. Lei Qi wanted Yin Bingyun to become Real God Extreme Fire. You should have guessed it. Everything was arranged by Lei Qi. Although I don't know what his motive is, I know that once I pass through the 20th fire, Lei Qi will come to the crepe myrtle sect to take me away. Yin Bingyun said sadly. Chapter 1962. Blood Immortal Sword. Yin Bingyun looked at Zhuowen with appreciation and smiled. Come sit in front of me. Zhuowen strode over and sat in front of Yin Bingyun. Looking up at the woman in front of him, Zhuowen was stunned. Yin Bingyun's beauty was almost on par with Yun Chiyu's. Due to the ice in the Phantom Rift Valley, Yin Bingyun's long hair was dyed white, and even her eyebrows were covered in ice. Her beautiful face was pale, and there was a delicate beauty to it. Sect Master Yin, if there's anything, just say it. If it's within my power, I will definitely help you, Zhuowen said in a deep voice. Yin Bingyun had given him such a large amount of glorious purple galaxy divine sand, so Zhuowen had a very good impression of her. If it was within his power, he would naturally help her. Of course, if Yin Bingyun asked him to deal with that so-called Lei Qi, he would definitely refuse. From Yin Bingyun's words, he could tell that Lei Qi was very powerful. Zhuowen was indeed strong, but he was not so conceited as to think that he could fight against a void sky expert. Yin Bingyun nodded. Chuyu told me before that she has invited you to become a guest elder of our crepe myrtle sect. Do you also plan to represent our crepe myrtle sect in the interstellar tournament? Zhuowen smiled. Don't worry, Sect Master Yin. Since I promised Miss Yun, I will naturally do it. I'm relieved to hear that. Actually, I have one more thing to ask of you. Crepe Myrtle Sect's great elder Zhao Yin has always coveted the position of sect master. Now that I can't move, he is even more arrogant and despotic. Speaking of this, Yin Bingyun took out a jade token and said, This is the sect master's token. Give it to Chuyu for me. I hope you can help Chuyu establish her prestige, and let her ascend to the position of sect master. Taking the jade token, Zhuowen cupped his fists and said, Sect Master Yin, don't worry. I will do it for you. Hearing this, Yin Bingyun smiled. However, hesitation soon appeared in her eyes. Then, she opened her mouth and spat out a flaming sword filled with the aura of disaster. Zhuowen, I won't treat you unfairly. This flame sword is a flame sword that I refined with the power of 19 fires. I see that you also use swords, so this sword should be of some help to you. Yin Bingyun laughed. Receiving the flaming sword, Zhuowen's pupils shrank to the size of needles. He could feel the terrifying energy contained within the flaming sword. This was the unique aura of fire. Moreover, it was an aura that far surpassed any other kind of fire. Although Zhuowen wasn't sure how terrifying the fire sword that was refined from the energy of the 19 fires was, he knew that the fire sword in front of him was definitely much stronger than a true god artifact. It was probably infinitely close to a void god artifact. I call this sword the Extreme Tao Fire Sword. Although it still lacks the tempering of a fire sword, and this Extreme Tao Fire Sword is not perfect, its power is still not to be underestimated. Yin Bingyun's delicate body trembled slightly as she forced out a smile. Sect Master Yin, this sword, Zhuowen was just about to say something when he was interrupted by Yin Bingyun. Zhuowen, this sword is one of the things that Lei Qi wants. I'm actually taking it out because I want to see if you dare to accept this supreme flaming sword. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. In fact, the moment Yin Bingyun took out the Extreme Tao Fire Sword, he had already guessed it. The Extreme Tao Fire Sword was indeed terrifying, but it was something that Lei Qi of the Dark Fantasy sect wanted. If Lei Qi came to the Crepe Myrtle sect to take Yin Bingyun away after 100 years, his fate would be obvious. He would definitely be hunted down by Lei Qi. Zhuowen, I know that your talent is very high. You were able to kill an ordinary true god of 3 disasters at the peak heaven god realm. This is an extremely rare monstrous talent in the Great Brahma Sky region. Your future is limitless. In 100 years, don't you have the confidence to advance to the Void Sky realm? Once your cultivation reaches the Void Sky realm, will you still be afraid of Lei Qi? Yin Bingyun looked hopefully at Zhuowen. I will accept this sword. Zhuowen's gaze was calm as he accepted the extreme Dao fire sword. It wasn't because of Yin Bingyun or Lei Qi, but because of Xiao Hei's thunder fire sword. The moment the extreme Dao fire sword was taken out, Xiao Hei had already started shouting. This extreme Dao fire sword was too suitable for the thunder fire sword. Once the extreme Dao fire sword was integrated into the thunder fire sword, the thunder fire sword would probably advance to a true god weapon immediately. Moreover, it wouldn't be an ordinary true god weapon. Seeing Zhuowen accept the extreme Dao fire sword, Yin Bingyun let out a sigh of relief. She took out the extreme Dao fire sword with the intention of tying Zhuowen to the crepe myrtle sect. She was optimistic about Zhuo Wen's talent and future. In her opinion, Zhuo Wen was too monstrous. A peak heavenly god killing true god, 3 disasters. Even Lei Qi back then couldn't do it, but the young man in front of her had done it. She firmly believed that once the youth in front of her rose, even Lei Qi wouldn't be able to contend against him. Therefore, she could only use this method. Even though she knew that her actions would make Zhuowen unhappy, she had no other choice. She couldn't even move. She didn't even have the right to commit suicide. She could only be bound by the ice of the illusory Rift Valley like a living dead. She had to find someone worthy of her trust. The crepe myrtle sect had already declined. Moreover, over the years, there hadn't been any brilliant geniuses that appeared. Although Yun Shuyu's talent was powerful, it was far from what Yin Bingyun had expected. She had fought with Lei Qi before and knew how monstrous Lei Qi was. So what if Yun Shuyu's cultivation had entered the Void Sky realm? The gap between Lei Qi and Yun Shuyu would only grow bigger. However, Zhuowen had appeared. Especially after hearing about Zhuowen's terrifying battle prowess from Yun Shuyu, Yin Bingyun knew that the Zhuowen in front of her was the best candidate for her. Therefore, she gave her precious glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand to Zhuowen in order to gain his favor. You can rest in the side hall for the next few days. When the sect master's inauguration ceremony begins, I hope that you can attend the ceremony with Chu. Yin Bingyun's face was pale, and her voice was much weaker than before. Sect Master Yin, take care of yourself. I have 5 stalks of Ice Flame Mysterious Yellow Ganoderma here. They should be quite beneficial to you. Zhuowen took out 5 stalks of Ice Flame Mysterious Yellow Ganoderma and placed them in front of Yin Bingyun. Then, he left the main hall and entered the side hall. Yin Bingyun stared blankly at the Ice Flame Mysterious Yellow Ganoderma in front of her. Her beautiful eyes were filled with complicated emotions. In the end, she said in a low voice, Zhuowen, thank you. Although Yin Bingyun seemed to be scheming against him, to Zhuowen, it was actually a win-win situation. Moreover, Yin Bingyun did give him some benefits and showed her sincerity. Therefore, Zhuowen was quite grateful to Yin Bingyun. In the dimly lit side hall, Zhuowen handed the sect master's token to Yunshu. Then, he chose a room and entered seclusion. As for the teleportation tablet and the jade slip with the records of the sun and moon grass, Yunshu also sent them to his room. Zhuowen took out the extreme flaming sword. A terrifying heat wave spread out. Even Zhuowen was almost affected by this heat wave, and he let out a muffled groan. Zhuowen was so frightened that he hurriedly used his enormous divine power to block this heat wave. Just now, in the ice of the illusory Rift Valley, this extreme flaming sword was very quiet. Now that it's in a different place, it's actually so violent. After barely blocking the heat wave, Zhuowen was quite shocked. This sword is just right for me, haha. The Thunderfire sword flew out from Zhuowen's body and instantly slashed at the extreme flaming sword. The extreme flaming sword was not to be outdone. It swept out with its sword and stood on top of the Thunderfire sword. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, the 2 swords began to fight. Terrifying flames engulfed the entire room. Fortunately, Zhuowen used the Heaven-Devouring Eye. The devouring power spread out around the room, and all the terrifying aftershocks that spread out were all devoured by the Heaven-Devouring Eye. Zhuowen smiled bitterly. Xiao He had clearly told him before that he could subdue the extreme flaming sword. How did it end up like this? If he had known this would happen, he would not have taken out the extreme flaming sword. The Thunderfire Sword and the Extreme Flaming Sword fought for an entire day and night before the Extreme Flaming Sword was finally slashed flying by the Thunderfire Sword. After that, the Extreme Flaming Sword stabbed into the ground, and its violent flames were restrained greatly. Zhuowen's expression was unsightly. He stared at Xiao He and said, "Xiao He, you clearly said that you could easily subdue the Extreme Flaming Sword. Why do I have to clean up your mess instead?" Xiao He smiled embarrassedly and said, "This extreme flaming sword is quite capable, so I just spent a little more effort." Zhuowen shook his head helplessly, and then he looked at the extreme flaming sword and said, "How do you intend to deal with this extreme flaming sword?" "Haha, of course I'll refine it into a sword servant. The Thunderfire Sword is an equipment cultivator and is skilled in the art of equipment refinement. How could it not have some sword servants by its side? Moreover, my sword servants must be refined from high-quality materials. This extreme flaming sword is even of the highest quality. Once this sword is refined into a sword servant, it will be of great significance to me. Not only will I be able to absorb the fire energy here to recover myself, but I can also borrow the power of the extreme flaming sword to protect me." Speaking of this, Xiao He sat on the sword hilt and waved its little claw and said, "Little blood disciple, come out quickly. Dragon Master, the little blood disciple is here." A flattering voice instantly sounded, and then a blood sword suddenly flew out and circled around Xiao He. The shadow of the blood immortal floated above the blood sword. You refined the blood immortal into a sword servant as well?" Zhuowen looked at the blood sword in surprise. The blood immortal's aura still lingered on the blood sword. "Yes, I have already discussed with the little blood disciple before. If he wants to live a good life with this Dragon Master, then he has to be like me and become an equipment cultivator. So I refined the blood immortal's body into the blood immortal sword, and his soul into the equipment spirit. You have to know that there are no bottlenecks for equipment cultivators. The only thing you need is to absorb the required materials and continuously refine it. The equipment cultivator will naturally become more and more powerful." Xiao He looked at the crossed legs and said rather proudly. Zhuowen's expression became serious. This was the first time Zhuowen had heard of equipment cultivators. Especially the sword servant that Xiao He mentioned, he had never heard of it before. Zhuowen glanced at Xiao He. He had a feeling that the Thunderfire Sword that Xiao He was attached to was definitely not simple. "I will take the extreme flaming sword first. After I refine it into a sword servant, I'll let you play with it. Besides that, give me the glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand. I'll refine the soul assimilating needle once more for you, and then I'll refine a suitable sword for you." You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.